Good morning, everybody. It is week 3 of the NFL season. Do me favors. You're coming in here. Like this video. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you are new to this show, here's what we're about to do. For the next 45 minutes, I'm going to go over the initial projections and ownership that we have here of Sunday morning. And then we're going to build out some lineups for DraftKings. We're going to build out some lineups for FanDuel. And I'm going to answer any questions you guys have. If you have lineups that you want me to sim out for you, in the single lineup sim, you can leave me a super chat with that lineup and I'll evaluate it for you. If it ends up looking good, we'll say, looks like a good lineup to play. If on the other hand, it ends up simulating out as being a negative ROI lineup, we'll rebuild it and we'll try to make it a good profitable lineup for you. If you're a Stokastic sub, you're going to have access to our Discord channel. That comes with access to any of the packages that we have here. It comes with access to our Discord channel. You could at me at any point in time over this show. I'll be always monitoring the Discord messages, and I will see if there's anything that you want me to run through the single lineup sims, or maybe you just have a general question you want me to answer for you as we're here. So hopefully you guys are having a good morning here and you're ready for week 3 of the season. Also, I'll give it a little bit of time here as to let more people come in, but also I'm doing a giveaway for a free week of Stokastic NFL sims as well. So stick around because I'm going to let you guys know how you can win a free week of Sims access for yourself. And that's going to be through Tails, which you could either download the Tails app or go over to tails.bet. But let's start looking at the initial projections for this week's slate before we go and build our lineups. And if you guys remember last week, it was something like 6 or 7 quarterbacks that were projected from north of 20 fantasy points. It was the most I could ever remember for a single slate. And it was pretty much all of the expensive quarterbacks. We've got a different situation this slate. Still a decent amount of highly projected quarterbacks, 4 north of 20 fantasy points, but we've got some cheaper ones that are projecting really well here. So Justin Herbert project for 21 fantasy points. You got Jalen Hurts at 20.5, but then Caleb Williams just over 20 fantasy points and Dak Prescott just over 20 fantasy points, and neither of them are all that expensive. $5,600 for Caleb Williams, $5,900 for Dak Prescott. They're playing against each other. We have seen so far to open the year, this Cowboys pass defense, garbage. They just gave up, I don't even know what the number was. Nobody could count as high as the amount of yards that Russell Wilson had last week. He finished with a gazillion passing yards against them. The top lineups by a mile last week. It was Russell Wilson double stacks with Wan'Dale Robinson and Malik Neighbors. And now you've got Caleb Williams going up against that same Cowboys pass defense. So as a result, you've got Caleb Williams projecting pretty well. And he is also going to be one of our more popular quarterbacks that we have on the slate. And nothing is crazy popular at QB, but we've got 4 players who are pulling around 10% ownership. It's Marcus Mariota, who is the flat min. We've got a couple of injury situations at quarterback too, where we've got somebody like Marcus Mariota starting in place of Jaden Daniels. He looks like a really good value option at the min price at 4K. You got Caleb Williams 10% owned, Dak Prescott 9.5% owned, and then Justin Herbert 9% owned. And now as far as those cheap quarterbacks go, look at the value here at QB. You've got Marcus Mariota, the flat min. You've got Carson Wentz also the flat min at 4K. And that's not to mention that Mac Jones, who was the flat min last week starting in place of Brock Purdy, he's been priced up a little bit to 5K, but he's also really cheap. So I can't remember a slate that we've had where there was actually multiple viable quarterbacks who were the flat min. And that's what we have here. Marcus Mariota and Carson Wentz are both 4K, and they are viable quarterbacks for rostering. Carson Wentz is a great matchup against the Bengals. Marcus Mariota against the Raiders, not a terrible matchup. He's also got some weapons around him. So he is in a spot to succeed. And then also Marcus Mariota, when he plays, a pretty decent fantasy quarterback. He has the ability to run the football. So a couple of good looking cheap quarterbacks we have for the slate as well. At the running back position now, we've got some value at running back this week as well. Handful of running backs project for north of 20 fantasy points on the high end. Christian McCaffrey, 23 fantasy points and change. Bijan Robinson, 22 fantasy points and change. Then you've also got Saquon Barkley and Jonathan Taylor, both projected for north of 20 fantasy points. Kenneth Walker with Zach Charbonnet out. There's no running back in the NFL so far this year. It's only a 2-week sample size, but still, it's worth noting there is not a single running back in the NFL who has forced a higher percentage of missed tackles per attempt than Kenneth Walker. He had over 100 rushing yards last week on just 13 carries. Now is no Zach Charbonnet this weekend. We are going to see a bigger workload going to Kenneth Walker, and what should be a really good game script. He's going up against the Saints. The Saints, not very good this year. The Seahawks are favored by a touchdown. So Kenneth Walker, he looks to be in a really good spot. And he's not the only one either. We've also got Jordan Mason. Aaron Jones is on the injured reserve. And Jordan Mason, who's looked pretty decent for the Vikings through the first 4 games of the year. And also that same good match we just talked about with Carson Wentz, Jordan Mason's going to be playing against the Bengals. And it looks like he's going to be involved in the run game as well as a little bit of work in the pass game. Aaron Jones was getting a decent amount of passing work, and some of that is going to go to Mason. Now, Mason had 3 targets last week. So you got a couple of really good, cheap running backs who are going to be projected for a lot of ownership here. We've got Kenneth Walker projected for 36% ownership at $5,800. Jordan Mason projected for 29% ownership at $5,400. And I think they're both good chalk options. So the way that I'm going to be looking at this slate as we start to build out lineups is I do like a lot of the chalk. It's hard to make a case that this is a bad spot for Kenneth Walker or Jordan Mason. So I think is going to make sense for us as we build out some lineups. It's not going to be just avoid the chalk entirely. It's what are a couple of reasonable low-owned stacks or low-owned individual players that we can find that we build around some of these chalk pieces with to have a lineup that is still going to project really well, but still has some spots where it's going to be a little bit different from the field. And then we've also got Christian McCaffrey just under 30% owned as a pay-up option. Bijan Robinson is 21% owned. And then you got Jonathan Taylor, 19% owned. Saquon Barkley also 15% owned. So earlier in the week, Saquon Barkley was a little bit more contrarian relative to the other pay-up running backs, but so much value has opened up over the course of the week, both in terms of cheap quarterbacks, other cheap running backs, that it has kind of become easier to spend up for some of these other guys. So ownership going to McCaffrey, Bijan Robinson, Jonathan Taylor, and Saquon Barkley. As far as value is concerned and our points per dollar projections, nothing massively surprising here. Kenneth Walker and Jordan Mason leading the way by a pretty wide margin. Wide receivers now. Let's see what we got for projections here. So at the wideout position, CeeDee Lamb in that really, really good spot there where we see all that ownership going to both the Bears and the Cowboys in terms of Caleb Williams and Dak Prescott. CeeDee Lamb, he is our highest projected wide receiver on the slate with 20.5 fantasy points. Then you got Puka Nacua just under 20 fantasy points. JSN. So I'm not massively concerned with the JSN illness situation. I'm sure this is something that's on your guys' mind. It's something that probably some of you were going to ask me about. So we saw yesterday, Jackson Smith and Jigba got added to the injury report as questionable with an illness, but we've since found out this morning that he just had a bug yesterday, and it was really more precautionary that he was added to the injury report with the illness as opposed to him actually being at real risk of missing the game. So I'm not too concerned with JSN. I'm going to be firing up as if he is totally good to go. And another thing to consider too, at $6,500, he's like $1,000 underpriced in my opinion. I think that JSN is establishing himself as a true number 1 wide receiver in the league. So even if you want to say like he's only going to be 95% instead of 100%, I mean, the price tag is so far below where he should be that it's not really all that much of a concern for me. Then you've also got Justin Jefferson at 17 fantasy points, Jamar Chase just over 16, Mike Evans also 16 and change. Worth noting when it comes to the Tampa Bay pass attack that Egbuka, he does not appear to be 100%. And that is a little bit more concerning to me in terms of his health. So if we see a game where Egbuka isn't able to finish the game or he's just not really playing to the standard that we've seen from the first couple of weeks, then I think Mike Evans is in line for a little bit of a bigger workload. Ownership at the wide receiver position. We've got JSN, who we just went over. It is kind of interesting because I do wonder if his projected ownership dips a little bit just because of the narrative around the questionable tag. Right now, our ownership is expecting that's not going to be the case, but who knows? Maybe that changes a little bit as we go here. But as of right now, JSN, he is still projected to be the most popular wide receiver on the slate and the only one more than 20% ownership. Puka just under 20% owned. You got CeeDee Lamb 18% owned. And then you got a Roman Dunze who is 17.5% owned coming off of a game where he scored, what do you have, like 32 fantasy points last week, caught a couple of touchdowns, and now he's in this high-paced game that's expected to be really high scoring between the Cowboys and the Bears. We'll talk about it more as we start to build out lineups, but one point of leverage I like to potentially get a little bit different in Bears-Cowboys stacks is to go to guys like George Pickens or to go to DJ Moore instead of Roman Dunze. And that's one way you still have a lot of upside. You're getting a little bit less ownership in those lineups. Value. Let's see. Are there any cheap wide receivers that are popping up? Not really. Certainly not the same as the quarterback or the running back position. Keenan Allen, he's certainly underpriced at $4,700. He's got very, very similar looking props to Ladd McConkey. He just comes at a considerably cheaper price point. And it was a down year last year for Keenan Allen playing with the Bears and with Caleb Williams. But now that he's back with Justin Herbert and with the Chargers, he looks like the exact same guy he was when he left the Chargers last. So he just looks like $1,500 or so too cheap based on how he's played to open up the season. And then the other value wide receivers, nothing too crazy cheap or anything like that. Tight ends now, as far as projections go, we've got Trey McBride at just over 15 fantasy points. Brock Bowers, 14.5. Brock Bowers definitely looked limited by that big knee brace that he was wearing on Monday Night Football last week. It also led to a little bit of a decrease in his production for that game. So with that in mind, I do definitely slightly prefer Trey McBride as my favorite pay-up tight end. And then you've also got Tyler Warren, Jake Ferguson, Juwan Johnson, and Tucker Kraft, all on the cheaper end of tight end and projected for 10 to 11 fantasy points here. Ownership at the tight end spot, we've got just under 20% ownership going to Trey McBride, 10% ownership to Jake Ferguson. The tight end ownership, it's pretty spread out. As far as value at the tight end spot, here are the best points per dollar guys. Jake Ferguson, even though he's a pay-up option, Trey McBride, Juwan Johnson. So still a lot of the guys who are the highest projected tight ends are the same ones that are showing up here as being the ones as the top value options as well. Just going to check Discord really quick to see if there were any questions. And yeah, we've got one from Hypnotoad. He wants to know, do I have a favorite sneaky stack for single entry on DK today? Yes, and I will go and build that out in a second for you guys. I just want to let you know how you could get yourself a free Stokastic Sim subscription this week. So here's what you're going to do. Go over to tails.bet or download the app, whichever's easier for you. And when you get to the page, make an account, once again, totally free, and you're going to see the option to follow some people or just find experts on the platform. So look for me. Just search Greg, my name. You'll find me here. All right, so here's what I have posted and pinned to my profile over on Tails. You will see here that I built out some run of sims yesterday, and I have here my top 5 sim ROI lineups for FanDuel and DraftKings, and all you have to do is like this post. So like this post over on Tails, and you are going to be entered into a drawing with a chance to win a free week of Stokastic NFL DFS core sims. Just go to Tails, make an account, follow me. You don't have to follow me. That part isn't really required, but I would appreciate it if you followed me there. And then also, if you follow me and you download the app and turn on notifications, you're going to get all the bets that I post, all the DFS content I post. It'll get sent right to your phone when I go and post it on Tails. And also, I have, if you guys follow my bankroll thread last year, I'm doing something similar on Tails now. Started doing it this week. So posting a bunch of bets there, tracking all the results so you guys could see these were my betting results from yesterday. Hit a couple of home run bets on Giancarlo Stanton and Aaron Judge. So profited about 6.5 units and up 12 units for the week. So if you guys want some free DFS content, free bets, and a chance to win a free Stokastic Sim subscription, just head on over to Tails. Follow me, turn on notifications to get access to all my bets as soon as I post them. And then also like this post so you get entered into that drawing. It's all totally free as well. Won't cost you a dime. So go check it. You'd be silly if you didn't take advantage of that. All right, let's start building out some lineups. And we'll begin here with what Hypnotoad asked me. He wants to know, what is a favorite sneaky stack for single entry today? All right, so let's start on DraftKings. And there's a couple of ways to go about this. So I don't know if he means what is my favorite just low-owned quarterback stack or a way to potentially differentiate a stack that I otherwise like. So I'm going to build out a couple of lineups here. I'm going to start, though, by plugging in Carson Wentz. I do like Carson Wentz at the flat min, only 5% owned. And I also really like some of the stacking partners we get with him. I don't mind Jordan Mason with Carson Wentz. I do think Mason's going to get somewhere like 3 to 5 targets today, but also he is so cheap that any points that the Vikings score, anytime they move the ball, I do think it's going to benefit Carson Wentz and Jordan Mason, even if oftentimes we think of running backs, quarterbacks at times can be kind of negatively correlated, but they're so cheap. It doesn't really bother me in this kind of, in this spot. So now also at wide receiver, I want to pair Carson Wentz with Justin Jefferson. All right, so we've got Carson Wentz with Jordan Mason and Justin Jefferson. Also, if you want to at tight end, you could make it a triple stack. You could include TJ Hawkinson as well. For this lineup, though, I want to just make it Carson Wentz, Jordan Mason. All right, run back now. What do we want to do with a run back? I do want to plug Ja'Marr Chase into this lineup. So this is what I was talking about at the top. There are a lot of really chalk options on this slate that I think are kind of hard to get away from. But if you combine them with some lower owned options, or you can combine them in kind of unique ways, like how many people are going to be playing Jordan Mason with Carson Wentz and Justin Jefferson and Ja'Marr Chase. So I like this game stack. You've also got a 5% owned Carson Wentz. You got a 6% owned Ja'Marr Chase. And now I think we're good to add in some of the other chalkier pieces. So I'm going to lock all these guys in case we have to re-roll this lineup or anything like that. But I'm going to plug Kenneth Walker into this lineup. And, let's actually just complete it from here with no randomness on it. We'll see what it looks like. All right. We got Carson Wentz, Kenneth Walker, Jordan Mason, JSN got plugged into the lineup. We got Jake Ferguson at tight end. Tony Pollard. I think Tony Pollard's a pretty interesting pivot off of Kenneth Walker and Jordan Mason. So if you guys did want to find a running back who's comparably priced, projects fairly well, but is much lower owned, 9% ownership on Tony Pollard. I know we haven't seen him really go off through the first couple of games of the season, but he's still in a spot where he's playing a ton of snaps, getting pretty much all of the touches out of the backfield for the Titans. And that's going to be the case until Tajay Spears returns from his injury. And now Tajay Spears on the injured reserve. So he's going to be out for at least this week and next week. And then the Steelers defense got plugged in as well. All right, let's see how this sims out. And then after this, I'm going to also answer Hypnotoad's question in a little bit different way, where I'm going to build out a different stack where it's going to be the, all right, pretty good, 54.7% sim ROI. All right, let's keep this one here for now. We'll make a new lineup. Something else, too, that I want to do, we kind of touched on doing this last week. I'm going to save all of the lineups that we build over the course of the show right here. And then at the end, we could go through all of the different builds we made and we could kind of compare them and see what they look like. If anybody leaves a super chat, we could also label that lineup with that person's lineup. So when we go here, you'll see that lineup labeled as that person's lineup. We could compare them all at the end of the show. I think that'll be fun. All right. So now the other thing that I want to try doing is making a Bears-Cowboys game stack, but not doing it with all of the chalkiest pieces from the game. And I think there's very reasonable ways to do it. All right, let's go to the Bears and Cowboys. Which, am I blind right now? Why am I not seeing? Oh, here it is. All right. Here we go. All right, Bears, Cowboys. I'm going to plug in Caleb Williams. But here's what we're going to do at wide receiver. Instead of going to CeeDee Lamb and Rome Odunze, who are projected for 18% ownership about a piece, George Pickens at 4% ownership, DJ Moore for 7% ownership. So George Pickens so far this year, he hasn't had the most wowing fantasy results. But with that said, he's run 78 yards of pass interference penalties. It doesn't count for fantasy points, but it still matters to me. He's getting looks. He's getting downfield targets. He's getting the chance for upside. And honestly, he's benefiting the Cowboys offense. It's just not in a way that's paid dividends for DFS purposes, but it doesn't mean the potential isn't there. So I like trying George Pickens as a pivot off of CeeDee Lamb. I like DJ Moore as a pivot off of Rome Odunze. It doesn't mean I don't like Lamb. It doesn't mean I don't like Odunze or anything like that. But I'm just showing you guys a way that I think we could build lineups and get exposure to the game that we all want to be rostering because it's expected to score a ton of fantasy points, but just do it in a way that's a little bit different from the field. All right, so we're going to go to Pickens and Moore here. That'll be our game stack. And then there's still other pieces we could include in here if you wanted to, like Jake Ferguson. I also think at running back, Javonte Williams, that's something else you could do. Instead of going to Dak Prescott or CeeDee Lamb, you go to Javonte Williams at the running back spot. I think that's also a reasonable way to go. But I want to build around this core right here. Now let's turn the randomness to 10%. Let's complete the lineup. We actually might get other guys from Dallas and Chicago showing up here. No, we didn't. All right, cool. I like this. We've got Christian McCaffrey, Kenneth Walker, JSN showed up. We got Juwan Johnson, Tony Pollard again. All right, cool. Steelers defense. Let's run the sim on this one. See how this one looks. And once again, we've got some popular piece in this game for sure. Christian McCaffrey, Kenneth Walker, JSN, good sim ROI, 61.3%. But how many people are going to make game stacks of Cowboys and Bears, but not have CeeDee Lamb and Roma Dunze in the lineup? So this is a way that I think you can get yourself a lot of exposure to that game and just be a little bit different looking. So Hypnotoad, I don't know exactly in what you meant when you had said that you wanted to have a unique single stack lineup here, but I think that both these probably answer that question. All right, let's save this lineup now. Now you see when we go back here, we can see the fantasy point projection, the sim ROI of the different lineups that we've built out. All right, what do we want to build next? Were there any other questions? Nothing at the moment. Also, if you guys haven't done yet, do me a favor, like this video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Helps us out a whole bunch in the YouTube algorithm, and it costs you nothing. It costs you like a half second of your time to hit a couple of buttons there. All right, let's also build. Actually, let's go to FanDuel. We haven't built a FanDuel lineup out, so we'll go to FanDuel. We'll build a couple FanDuel lineups. Then we'll jump back over to DraftKings. I see we got a super chat from Avi. Avi, you don't have to leave another super chat. I assume that you had a lineup you wanted me to sim, but you just forgot to include it there. So just type it out in the YouTube chat. I'll find that message, and then I will build that lineup out for you after I build one out right here. So on the FanDuel side of things, let's see. Who do we want to build the lineup with on FanDuel? Let me look at some of the lineups that I've built out on my other computer here and get an idea for what I want to start with on the FanDuel side. All right. Here's a contrarian team. Same, we liked this contrarian stack last week, and I want to go back to it again this week. Let's go to Mac Jones. All right, so we got Mac Jones, under 3% owned over on FanDuel. And the good thing about Mac Jones is that should he and the 49ers offense have a good game like he did last week, the production's only going to a few guys. It's going to go to Christian McCaffrey, Juwan Jennings, Ricky Pearsall. Last week, we saw Mac Jones have a solid game. We saw Christian McCaffrey have a solid game. And then we also saw Juwan Jennings have a pretty decent game. And none of those guys outside of Christian McCaffrey are really pulling much ownership this week. And also, I don't hate Christian McCaffrey with Mac Jones at all. Just think of Christian McCaffrey more or less as a pass catcher with a running back designation tag for position. Because here's what we've got for workload in the passing game for Christian McCaffrey through 2 games. Week 1, 9 catches on 10 targets. Week 2, 6 catches on 7 targets, also scored a touchdown. If you had a wide receiver who had 17 targets and a touchdown through the first 2 games of the year, you'd be like, yeah, that's somebody I want to pair with the quarterback. Same sort of deal here with Mac Jones. So we're going to go Mac Jones with Christian McCaffrey, and I'm going to go to Juwan Jennings here as well. Super low owned. 2% owned, 2% owned, and then, yeah, Christian McCaffrey is a little bit more popular. Running backs, let's lock these guys in case we want to make adjustments. So running backs over on FanDuel, we'll sort by value here. It's going to be the same guys that we liked for value over on FanDuel. Jordan Mason, Kenneth Walker, both really, really strong value options. I'll also put Kenneth Walker in here as well. So running back, I'm going to find it for myself, I'm going to find it very difficult to get away from Jordan Mason and Kenneth Walker. That's why I'm trying to find these other kind of like lower owned stack pieces or different ways to get leverage off of otherwise popular stacks. Because I think that's a more reasonable way to differentiate my lineups than just getting off Kenneth Walker and Jordan Mason, because I really like the positions that they're in. All right, let's complete this lineup now. What ended up in the rest of this lineup? All right, we got Mike Evans. I like the upside of Mike Evans with Egbuka appearing to not be 100%. We got Ted McMillan in the lineup, and I still don't know what to make of Bryce Young this year. He's been super inconsistent so far, but he did play a little bit better last week. And then we also saw a pretty good fantasy game from Ted McMillan. It is clear that he is a pretty decent rapport with Bryce Young there. We also got Trey McBride at tight end, and then the Packers defense. All right, let's sim this lineup out on FanDuel. And then, oh, I see. All right, so Abby left us a super chat. Didn't include the question there, but he wants to know, should we be worried about the weather over in Chicago? So here's something that you should take note of, right? This is not information that the betting market is unaware of. And listen to this. The total for that game is 50.5. The next highest total on the main slate today is 44.5, and that is Rams Eagles, juiced a little bit towards the over. It's not like the sports books are completely unaware that the weather might not be perfect. And then also on top of it, they have a retractable roof. So that's something else to consider as well. I don't know exactly how the roof being on or off would impact the offensive environment, but either way, when they have the ability to just put that roof on the stadium, there's not going to be conditions that really impact the game. But on top of it too, if you are, and this is more like a general thing, if you want to know how you think the weather might impact a game, just go to FanDuel, DraftKings, whatever sportsbook, and look at what the total is for the game. When this game has a total that's 6 points higher than every other game, and once again, this is kind of besides the point that this game has this stadium has a retractable roof, so it really doesn't matter. If the betting total is this much higher than every other game, it kind of tells you that the weather would not really be a factor, that the books are unconcerned with it. It would make you think that they are not concerned with it at all. So, with that the case, there isn't. I thought do they not have a retractable roof? Let me look. Either way, though, if the total is 6 points higher than every other game, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Why did I think they had a retractable roof? Whatever. I'm an idiot. The point remains. The total's 50.5. The total's 50.5. All right. Let's go ahead and build out some more lineups. And we got a bunch in here as well. Matty Ice. Matty Ice says Indie Stack. For what site? Indie Stack for FanDuel or DraftKings. And then Hypnotoad also has one here for DraftKings. All right, I'm going to build out Hypnotoad's lineup. And then I am going to go and build out the lineup for Matty Ice as well. All right. I got a super chat here from Michael Wynn. And then also Charles Moran says that Soldier Field. Yeah, so I don't know why I also thought the game was being played in Dallas, but whatever. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. The game is being played in Chicago, and the total's 50.5, the highest on the slate by 6 points. But from the Discord, all right, let's build this lineup here. It is Carson Wentz, Jordan Mason, Wentz, Mason, Walker, Wentz, Mason, Walker, Jefferson, Lamb, Chase. All right. Jefferson. This is pretty similar to the lineup that we opened up with. Jefferson, Lamb, Chase, Goddard, Adunzi, and Jets defense. Put Adunzi in at flex, Jets defense. So this is the lineup from Discord from Hypnotoad. So let's label this. We'll label this lineup as Toads. We'll run the sim on the lineup. And then I'll label everybody else's lineups too. Russell asked, why did I think there was a retractable roof at Soldier Field? I thought the game was being played in Dallas for whatever reason. And it isn't. The game's being played in Chicago. All right. So this lineup, 12.9% sim ROI for Hypnotoad. It's okay. I do think there's little things you could do to make that lineup better, but we'll save it in here with the rest of the lineups that we've got built out. So we got Toad's lineup here. Let's make another one here. This is Matty Ice's lineup. And then I also see Humboldt Parker wants to know, is there a Sims promo code? So what you could do is not a promo code at the moment, but if you go and sign up for our link join, for each one of the ones that you sign up for here on screen, you are going to get yourself a free month of Sim. So if you want to go sign up at any of these sites, link down below in the YouTube description box. For each one you sign up for, you get 1 free month of Core Sims access. So Chalkboard, BetMGM, Caesars, Underdog, whichever one you sign up for, each one free month. So take advantage of that offer. That's really the best deal that we have around here, and you could sign up for as many of these you want. We got 10 partners here, so you get yourself up to 10 free months of any single sport package of your choosing. So take advantage of that for sure. That is going to be the best way for you to go ahead and do that. All right. What's this lineup for Matty Ice now? All right. So Matt's lineup is Jones and Warren. All right. So an Indy stack. Jones, Tyler Warren at tight end. And then Pittman at wide receiver. And then I'll just put it on 5% randomness and finish out the lineup. And this will just label as Matt's lineup. We'll go Matty Ice. And we'll see how this one looks. So it finished out with Kenneth Walker, Bucky Irving got put in the lineup, Puka Nacua, JSN. Then we got Jordan Mason, Steelers defense. And lots of super chats here. All right, so we'll see who wins. We'll see who ends up with the highest Sim ROI lineup at the end of all this. Matty Ice leading the way right now. His Daniel Jones to Michael Pittman and Tyler Warren double stack, 84.1% Sim ROI. We'll save this in here across all the other lineups. And we've got here, I'll delete because that was accidentally an empty lineup. But yeah, Matty Ice, some of the lineups that I built out. All right. Matty Ice winning with the highest Sim ROI lineup right now. All right, let's make a new one. And we got some super chats now, so we'll plug these in. All right, Michael Wynn. Joe Flacco stack. This is on DraftKings. Flacco, Jacobs, Pollard, the Jets defense, Judy, Pickens, Njoku, Chase Brown. Okay, no, never mind. This is a 2v2. I was looking at this. I was like, there's like 80 players in this lineup. How could it only be one lineup? All right, so he's got Flacco, Jacobs, Pollard, Jets, Judy, Pickens. All right, so let's see. Which one do we think is going to sim better? 1 or 2? The second one is Drake May, Chuba Hubbard, Jordan Mason, Diggs, DK Metcalf, Pickens, McBride. I'll be honest. I don't think either of these are going to sim out well. I think they're both going to sim out pretty poorly. That's what I think is going to happen here. My recommendation is you probably don't want either of these. Let's try the second one. I think the second one probably has a better chance of simming out well. All right, this is from Michael Wynn. We'll go with Drake May, Chuba Hubbard. If it does sim out poorly, which I think it will, we'll make some changes to it to make it look a little bit better. You're going to need a little bit more of the... It's too contrarian. You're missing out on too many of the good plays on the slate. Chuba Hubbard. Mason. At least you have Mason in this one. The top lineup didn't have Kenneth Walker or Jordan Mason. And just by default, any lineups that have neither of those, I don't think are going to come out well, either in our post-contest sims, our pre-contest sims, or in the single lineup sims. I think that's going to be hard to make any of those lineups look good. All right, DK Metcalf, Pickens, McBride. CMC. I wonder if we also just were to flip out Hubbard for Kenneth Walker, if that would make a pretty big difference after we sim this out too. In the Jaguars defense. Maybe I'll be wrong. This will just sim out well. Oh, the bots are here. All right, 4.9% similar. Okay, that's not too terrible. But let's see if we just go, let's take out the Jaguars defense. Instead of Hubbard, just go with Walker. And also keep in mind, you have a lot of contrarian pieces in this lineup. So it's okay if you have the running back chalk. And then just whatever defense shows up. Falcons. All right, let's sim it like this. See if this comes out a little bit higher. And then we'll build out the next one. Goody, how do I feel about a Broncos Charger stack for DK20 max? I like it. We can build, yeah, this is much better. 42% sim ROI. Just make that change win. And then I think you're good to go. Just throw Kenneth Walker in there and do that instead of the lineup with Chuba Hubbard. All right. Goody, how do I feel about a Broncos Charger stack for DK20 max? I like it. That game also has a pretty decent total to it relative to the other games on the slate. What's the total there now? It is, yeah, 45 and a half now. I think it was 44 and a half when we started. So that one also has not as high of a total as the Bears Cowboys game, but still a pretty decent total. And there's also pieces that I like from that lineup. All right, Chargers and Broncos. All right, so from this game, I like Keenan Allen. Justin Herbert. I mean, the field also likes Justin Herbert. Herbert's 9% owned now, so it's not like this is some sort of crazy low-owned stack or anything like that, but it's not the most popular game to be stacking on the slate either. So we got Justin Herbert to Keenan Allen. Let's see. Who do we want from Denver in the game? Honestly, that is kind of the hardest part to me, is who I actually want to play from Denver. I don't want to deal with the running back situation at all. There's so many good running back options on the slate as well, but you got J.K. Dobbins is $5,700. There's at least been some talk online that R.J. Harvey could have a little bit bigger of a workload this week, but I don't want to play him at $4,700. So I want nothing to do with the backfield. And then when it comes to the pass catchers, just because Bo Nix has a lot of touchdown equity and runs a lot, there aren't any individual wide receivers that I love from Denver. I guess Cortland Sutton just kind of by default becomes the de facto guy. But we'll do a double stack here. We'll go Justin Herbert to Keenan Allen and Ladd McConkey. McConkey, $6,800. His role this year, at least so far, it's been a little bit lower just because Keenan Allen has taken up a bigger target share this year. Quinn Johnson's played really well also. But still, Ladd McConkey is lower owned than some of the other pay-up wide receivers on the slate. So we'll go Herbert to Allen and Ladd McConkey here. Let's see what it looks like if we just lock these guys in and then optimize around them. All right, McCaffrey, Walker, Ferguson at tight end, Mason, Steelers defense. Yeah, I think this is reasonable. Pretty reasonable Herbert double stack with a run back. All right, lots of lineups now. I'll try to build them as quickly out as we can. All right, so this came out with a 74.7% sim ROI. Label this one as Goody's lineup. Maybe. There we go. Who's winning right now? Still Matty Ice. Matty Ice had the 84.1% sim ROI. Who's next? See you at the top. Mariota, Mason, CMC, Lamb, Dunze, Moore, McBride, Kenneth Walker, Browns defense. All right, so you've got Marcus Mariota to just save salary. And do you have any of his? All right, so interesting. You just got a naked Mariota lineup and then making a Bears and Cowboys game stack around him. The cheap quarterbacks, I prefer to do with Mariota than with Wentz. When there is a viable quarterback that's 4K, I rarely have an issue with just running them out naked. I don't love doing with Carson Wentz for this slate, but Mariota, I don't really have a problem with it. It's not crazy to think that Mariota could have like 180 passing yards and then something like 30 rushing yards and a rushing touchdown and put up like high teens fantasy points or something like that and have a pretty good game naked. So Mariota, Mason, CMC, and Walker. This is going to be projected for a lot of just raw fantasy points. And then Lamb, Adunzi, Moore. I might as well just sort by ownership to plug in most of the guys to your lineup. You've got almost all of the most popular players at each position here. Lamb, Adunzi. Well, they do have more. Then at tight end, you got McBride, and then the Browns defense. How's this one going to come out? Somebody asking what a naked lineup is. Yeah, so naked lineup, just a quarterback without any of their pass catchers in the lineup. So it's them naked, right? They're not combined with any other guys. 45.1% sim ROI. Yeah, this projects for a ton of fantasy points at 148.46. The only issue with it is it just doesn't have a ton of correlation, and it's super, super chalky. So that I think is dragging down the sim ROI lineup a little bit. One thing I do think there, see you at the top, this is a really good cash game lineup if you play cash games. Matty Ice still in first. All right. Jeremiah Johnson wants to know about the Jets passing stack. Tyrod revenge against Baker and Bowles. Yeah, we could definitely check that out. The one thing I'll say about the Jets passing game, there are so many cheap quarterbacks to roster. On a lot of slates, I think we would have looked at Tyrod Taylor at $4,800 and thought like that's a reasonable source of salary savings. Before this week's game, there's so many other cheap quarterbacks that I do prefer to go to than Tyrod Taylor. So we could go to, I'll throw Mike Evans into this lineup too. We'll go Tyrod Taylor, Garrett Wilson. I don't really want to do like double or triple stacks with Tyrod Taylor just because a lot of his value does come through running the football. I still only have this game selected. All right. So Tyrod Taylor, Bijan Robinson, Kenneth Walker, JSN, Mike Evans, Garrett Wilson, Jake Ferguson, Jordan Mason, and the Steelers defense. I feel like the Steelers defense has showed up in like 3/4 of the lineups we've built so far. Let's see how it looks. Tyrod Taylor, Jets passing stack. Shout out to Coach. Coach saying good luck this weekend. That is from Coach. Coach, thanks for supporting the show. Also, anybody else, easiest way to support us is like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Also, don't forget, go over to tails.bet. I've got that pinned right to the top of my profile. Chance for you to win a free Stokastic Sims Core subscription. All you have to do is go over to Tails, look at my pinned post. It's top 5 Sim ROI lineups for FanDuel and DraftKings. Like that post, and you'll be entered into a drawing to win a free sub. Oh, this actually came out really strong. 87.8% sim ROI. So Jeremiah, I think that might be the highest sim ROI lineup that we've had right now. Did that top the one that we had? Yeah. So your lineup had an 87.8% sim ROI, just over Matty Ice's with an 84.1% sim ROI. All right, so maybe I'll have to reconsider more exposure to the Jets passing attack. And then we'll build out this lineup here before we head on over to the deep dive guys. I see Ben and Loughy waiting here in the wings. And I see Doug also left super chat. All right, so Doug, I'll build out your lineup. We'll build out Doug's lineup. We'll build out Sean's lineup. And then I got to give Loughy and Ben their turn on camera as well. So these last two lineups. All right, Sean's lineup is Sam Darnold with JSN, Bucky Irving, Kenneth Walker, Ricky Pearsall. All right, interesting. So you've got a Saints onslaught stack here because you've got Darnold, Seahawks defense, JSN, Kenneth Walker. And then you've also got Bucky Irving at running back with Kenneth Walker. And then JSN at wide receiver. Then you've also got Sutton, McBride. And who is the other wide receiver? Keenan Allen. So you got a little mini game stack here. You got Sutton and Keenan Allen, McBride at tight end, and then also Ricky Pearsall. All right, this is Sean's lineup. How is Sean doing relative? So the high water mark right now is just under, or right around an 85% sim ROI. All right, it's positive. Not in contention for the best lineup today, though. And then we got Doug's lineup, which I'm going to have to find here. Yeah, Doug also making fun of himself, saying he doesn't know how to super chat. All good. I got it. I got your message here. All right, another Colt stack. This is with Daniel Jones. So we got Daniel Jones, Bijan Robinson, Kenneth Walker. Interesting. Almost nobody put Christian McCaffrey in their lineups. So actually, this also not that many lineups with Bijan either. I think this is the first one somebody's left with Bijan in it. And nobody has put a lineup with Jonathan Taylor or Saquon Barkley in it yet either, from all the questions we've gotten. All right, Pittman, Keenan Allen, JSN, Warren, and Lamb. So double stack Daniel Jones with, by the way, if Daniel Jones and the Colts end up sucking this week, we're all going to look like idiots because there's just kind of this foregone conclusion. Hey, look, Daniel Jones is back. The Colts look really good. And they're 4.5-point favorites on the road. If they end up losing this game outright or just don't look great, I think a lot of us will be like, oh yeah, why did we think that Daniel Jones was going to be so good just because he had 2 good games? But I still like him as a fantasy asset. I'm just prepared to feel like an idiot about myself about it. All right, CeeDee Lamb. And then any DST for $5,400 or less. All right, what projects the best at defense of what we have left? The Bengals. So we're just going to plug the Bengals in. Does give you a little bit of leverage here as well. You just consider we got the Bengals defense. The lineup doesn't have Jordan Mason in it. So it kind of makes sense from that standpoint, right? Jordan Mason going to be super popular in a lineup that doesn't have him, play the defense against him. 47.5% sim ROI here for Doug's lineup. So the final roundup of lineups that we have here. We got, and almost all of these were for DraftKings. That's just what the super chats were for. But here's what we got. We got Jeremiah Johnson's lineup, 87.8% sim ROI. He won the lineup building portion here. Matty Ice's lineup, 84.1% sim ROI. Goody's Justin Herbert lineup that he wanted us to build at a 74.7% sim ROI. The Caleb Williams lineup that I built at the top, where we got a little bit different, and we went to DJ Moore and George Pickens instead of CeeDee Lamb and Rome Odunze. That went at a 61.3% sim ROI. So that is going to do it for us, guys. Thank you very much for watching. Deep Dive is coming up next. If you haven't done yet, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and also don't forget, head on over to tails.bet, get yourself free bets from me, get yourself free bets from Loughy. Ben's posting bets there. You've also got Eric posting bets and a lot of other guys as well. So go over there, download the app, turn on notifications. It's totally free. Good luck. See you guys later.
Hello and welcome to the Stokastic.com Deeper Dive right here, Sunday, week 3. Glad to have you guys with us. We're about to have a little bit of fun on a 13-game slate. Let me tell you, because if you haven't looked at this yet, well, I don't know why you wouldn't have. In the event that you have, Ben, there are a few guys that have just risen to the top as massive chalk. You know, and you've got Mason. We knew that was going to happen with Jones hitting the IR earlier in the week. But now you have Kenneth Walker. I was looking to get to some sneaky Kenneth Walker spots this week with Zach Charbonnet, not even on the injury report early. Now he's doubtful to play, and that makes this game look like these guys are going to be two of the chalkiest plays on the slate.
Oh, yeah, this is going to be a wild one. We got, it's early in the season, but we got some curveballs. We've got min-price quarterbacks. We've got chalk running backs. We've got a lot of, on the betting side, I like some greasy home dogs. We may get ourselves into trouble here, but this is going to be a fun show just because of the nature of the slate.
Yeah, man. Anyway, happy to have. What's that?
I didn't even say. Also, good morning. I haven't talked to you today. Good morning.
Yeah, man. Good morning. How you doing? Good.
All right.
Yeah.
Got a little knocked around last night in college, but that's all right. We'll dust ourselves off.
Well, that's what this is here for. That's the greatest part about all this. You can have amnesia.
That's right.
Things go wrong. Well, tomorrow we'll get it back. That's how it goes. But glad to have all you guys with us. If you don't mind, take a single second this fine morning, atone for your sins. Yes, hit that thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. Goes a long way for us. We absolutely appreciate you guys for hanging out, supporting this show. And where you could be elsewhere on a Sunday morning, you decided to be here. It does not go unnoticed. We appreciate you. So let's see what we can do. I mean, Ben, I'm not going to beg for thumbs up here, right? But it is free. And I will say there have been times where we've managed to punch, I should say the community has managed to punch this north of 1,000. So
those were different times, but we'll see how high we climb. Maybe I'll set one of my classic over-unders. We'll see where we go. It's too early in the show.
All right. Well, here's all I'll say.
Where are we, first of all, so I can
we're at 277. Can you give me an over-under?
I'll give you a non-binding over-under, and then come back to me in 20 minutes. You just wanted to do that. I'll go with, what do we have? I'll go with 631.
On this show specifically?
Yes.
That's attainable. They'll get us there. You guys will get us.
That's why it's close.
Yep. Anyway, that's a good number, actually. I hope you guys are having a good weekend. Let's try and make the weekend a little bit better. We're going to dive right into it, Ben. We got 13 games. You got a lot of cheap quarterbacks, right? You have no Jaden Daniels. Just trying to lay the foundation for a second here. You have no Jaden Daniels. You have no J.J. McCarthy. That may have been by design. You have no Joe Burrow. I mean, just a lot of injured players, a lot of quarterbacks specifically injured. It looks like Brock Purdy's also going to be out, so you get another Mac Jones game. I told you guys last week, everyone's saying how it's Mac Jones sucks. I'm telling you, he's not that bad.
You got a couple good ones. You got me on a little Neighbors, which was obviously the single most important key to the slate. I wish you would have told me to get on Russell Wilson.
I wish I would have told myself to get on Russell.
That eluded me. For obvious reasons.
I was like, I think Neighbors could be the main play of like the difference maker on the slate. I didn't think it would be Wandale and Russell Wilson coming along with him at all. But yeah, man, look, we're going to have some spots we hit, we missed. The truth is though, and I mentioned this to you yesterday, we typically text throughout the slate, usually just disgruntled messages. Right. Yes. And I said last week, it felt like I got everything right, but at the same time, enough wrong to where none of it mattered. You know what I mean? Like, I had some great lineups and some good builds that on any other slate probably could have crushed. But when I don't have Russ Wilson with I had a lot of Neighbors. But when you don't have that trio, and when you don't have enough like Amon-Ra St. Brown mixed in, it kind of doesn't matter if you made some good builds and some good decisions.
Yeah, we were talking about this a little, and it's these crazy high. I would consider that a relatively high scoring slate.
It was, yeah.
And when you get like that, it becomes like a slate in a slate, because without those raw points, like I know for me, once you cross like 25 points on a slate, to me, it all feels the same, and it is not. Like when a guy gets 48, that's 18 more than 30. But to me, it's like, oh, he crushed. But it's like, no, there's a big difference. So once you start getting up there, it just becomes you need those guys. And even if you have really good lineups, you're not able to make up the raw point difference from a St. Brown or a Neighbors.
Yeah, 100%. All right, let's get into it. Glad you guys could join. I will just point out real quickly, Ben, our friend Clayton in chat said, Loughy, that contrarian the contrarian lineup you posted over on Tails was pretty interesting. I'll show it to you, Ben, because this was from our perfect lineup video, and Josh and I build out 3 lineups. It's a quick, like 10, 15-minute video. And then I said, hey, you know what I'm going to do? I'll throw one up on Tails as well that I think will be an interesting contrarian build. In this spot, dude, and obviously this was earlier in the week. This was on Friday, but it was a Bo Nick stack with Sutton and Franklin. And the reason I did this and the reason I wanted to throw this out there, you guys, of course, can iterate however you want on this stuff. First of all of our picks, all of our bets, and all of the DFS lineups that we throw up there on Tails and all of the DFS content is 100% free, guys. Simply just use the link in the description to click into it, create a free account, no credit card needed. Follow me, follow Ben, and everything we do over there for in the betting world, in the DFS world. But the thing I found interesting about this, and this will kind of segue us straight into the conversation here, is that when you have games today like Dallas and Chicago, right? And you have some of these games that are very clearly going to be chalk. And you have these spots like Mason and Walker, who I think are both fantastic plays, but you have all of these other games that are between like 41 and 44.5 points. If you look at this Denver and LA game, it actually has the second highest total on the slate, and it feels like it's just kind of being ignored in many ways. So I'd like to get some pieces of that, potentially some stacks. Troy Franklin has actually been he's the leading target getter right now, but he's the clear wide receiver too, ahead of Marvin Mims and behind Cortland Sutton. So I just wanted to throw out some ways to build lineups differently this week. This was using the single lineup simmed out to 74%, posted it over on Tails. That I think makes the slate a little bit more interesting when a lot of people are going to be heading in the exact same direction.
Yeah, I mean, I love that. First of all, big shout out to the perfect lineup. I watch that. Truly, I watch that every week. Love that video.
Thanks, man. We have a lot of fun with that.
It's a good one. There's going to be some of those type of stats. Like I said, I haven't finished building. I got some weird stuff to talk about because there are chalk plays on this slate. And if you don't go there with all the cheap options, you can do some yeah, you're taking something. You're taking all that hate today. I'm not on him, so
you love Sutton just as much as I do, but for some reason my identity is tied to Sutton.
Yeah. I mean,
anyway, you're saying if you're not taking certain,
you can really mix it up today. And it doesn't mean you have to fade Mason and fade the Bears game, but I certainly have lineups that are shorting some of them. And when you do that, your lineups look really, really different.
I agree. I also have lineups that have both Mason and Walker, but the rest of the build is totally different, like a different game stack, you know? Yep. So let's get into it. Make it happen. We'll kick it off with the Raiders and Washington. All right. And D-Buff, I'll get to that super chat in a second. Ben, we can keep track of those as we go on. Yeah, Raiders and Washington, man. You've got no Jaden Daniels. Marcus Mariota is getting the start. Geno Smith, in his home debut last week against the Chargers, was pretty much as abysmal as you could get, right? I'm not necessarily sure you can get any worse than Geno Smith was in that game. Is that fair to say?
It was he's lucky that it was on so late that most people missed the horrendousness. Yes.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. Pete, Stokastic's killing it this year with the new formats. Way to stay ahead of the curve. Thanks, man. We are trying.
Appreciate it.
Also, shout out to Neil at Flannelverse. He is the showdown shaman. Look, Neil's our good buddy here. Also, I gave him that nickname, just so we know.
I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah. You kidding me?
All right.
You kid? And I gave Gajeski the preseason pioneer when we would do DFS preseason. I did not give him the flannel god or whatever that is. But anyway, I don't know if you saw this video making the rounds. It's just like younger kid who broke down the offensive line problems for the Raiders in that game against the Chargers. And it was like a 3-minute video of him just shitting all over it, rightfully so, where Ashton Genty could not get the ball before he was hit. There were times where his own players were getting blocked into him and he was falling down 5 yards behind the line of scrimmage. seems to be a serious problem right now, the offensive line for this Raiders team. And whether you love Aston Genty or not, I don't care who you are or what you say. If you don't have any room to run, it doesn't matter how talented you are. There is no better example of this than Saquon Barkley going from the Giants and then to the Eagles and literally breaking the all-time full season rushing record in his first season there.
Yeah, we talked about this a little on the first look. It's not even just that. That's for all running backs. But the way, I've seen a lot of college football, and the way I used to watch, the Boise State games, he was the type of runner, 2, 3, 4, 74. Like, yep. He is built to get loose, and he's just not getting those opportunities. I think his longest rush on the year is like 12 yards. It's just so far, and it's only a couple games. He's not been able to do that, and the offensive line is a mess. And it's a damn shame because you've got some of the best weapons in the league sitting there, from Bowers to, I think Genty's going to be great. Obviously, Myers on the outside. Not writing them off completely, but they got problems. And this line would be a lot bigger if Washington didn't have their own problems.
So I did run the Sims, Ben. Mm-hmm. I ran it on a 10,000 field, 20% to first. And, hold on a second. And there are spots, and I know you as well, that you're willing to take shots on this week. Maybe Genty ends up just being the guy, and we're like, damn it, we should have gotten to more. I don't think I'm going to get to much of him. And the reason being, at 6,700, I just have trouble pulling the trigger there when I have so many other options. Like, McCaffrey's in a good spot. Jonathan Taylor, I said this before the season started. If this guy stays healthy, he's leading the league in carries. Probably touches. Like, overall, this guy's just getting dominating touches. You have Bijan against Carolina. You have Barkley against the Rams team. He racked up 500 yards from scrimmage in 2 games against last year. I'm just scratching the surface. You have Mason. Hell, even Tony Pollard before Tajay Spears returns. You have Kenneth Walker. Oh, I don't think I can prioritize Genty. What I do want to do, I am going to have some Geno doubles with Jacoby and Bowers, because you should have the ball a lot more this game than you would if Jaden Daniels is extending drives and they're just methodically moving the ball downfield. It feels like a spot where no one's going to want to get to Geno. Jacoby's 5,600. Brock Bowers, another week removed from that knee injury, is 6,000. I do want some pieces of this because I think it will be relatively – I'm not convinced that Jacoby Myers comes in at 14% right now. Like, I think they could actually be a lower owned stack, and I want some of that. But aside from that, I'm not really getting to the ground game here.
Oh, no, I'm not getting to the ground game. I'm not getting to much. Bowers would be my most interesting piece. I will agree right off the bat, and you're going to hear this a lot. The Raiders are the type of stack, if you go with some chalk pieces and you roll a Raider stack, you're going to be different. More people are looking at the flat min quarterback on the other side. More people are looking just elsewhere. Simple as that. So if you can do that and you do have the obvious pairings and you hit it, it's going to be like the Giants last week in terms of potential ownership. To me, I would rather just play a one-off of Bowers and leave it at that.
Okay, that's fair. I like Jacoby too, but I get what you're saying.
We're both saying the same thing, I'll tell you this. If he's that popular, I would find that.
Agreed. I think when we update projections and ownership, I have to think that comes down.
I would think so.
What about the Commanders with Mariota?
So, obviously, like I said, it changes the team. The thing about Mariota, 1, he's the min. So right there. 2, it's not the min and he's an unknown. He's the opposite of that. He's been in the league for a long time. He is who he is. He's going to manage the game, I think, pretty well. And then 3, he is live to score on the ground. He has some rushing ability. So, like, the tricky thing with Mariota, and you're going to see people do this first, certainly in cash and probably even in tournaments, is just run him naked, I would assume. Maybe a skinny stack with, I don't know, Debo or Terry or whatever. But Mariota at that price point, you can absolutely just trot him out. You pay them in, you load up at other positions, and you hope he gives you a couple hundred yards passing and maybe some, 5 to 8 points on the ground somehow, and you call it a day. That's really the only way I think you can play this. I have no interest in like Mariota plus 2 or 3. I think that's a weird build.
Oh, I hear you. By the way, I had a filter on for Bo when I was filtering Bo Nix lineups to add into the entry manager. So that was wrong earlier. We do have some Geno, but yeah, look, we have very little of this team. I even saw some Marcus Mariota lineups popping up that were naked. I totally get it. If you want a couple spots here, like a tiny bit of Debo or Mariota or Zach Ertz, who's been proficient, in this offense, I'm with it. That's fine, but very little. One of the teams that I'm really not high on, Ben. So I want to move on. And we had a question too from Robert. Robert, rephrase that. When you're saying, is everyone overthinking with the level of talent on each side and it ends up breaking the slate? I'm not sure. I'm not sure if you're saying like, rephrase that for me, because I'm not positive, because I have some real thoughts on this game that we'll get to when we get there. But I want to talk about Atlanta first, Ben. Because you've got this Atlanta Falcons team today going in as, this is going to go off as probably 5.5, right? I don't see it moving any further at this point. I look at this and do I think Carolina goes in and just wins outright? No, but I think they could in a divisional spot. I think it's possible.
Go over to them again. Go over to Tails. If you want to check out my NFL bets, you'll see a lovely Carolina Panthers plus 5.5 ticket.
Yeah. Okay. I thought you were going to say money line, but
ugly dogs. Still. Yeah.
Yeah. Look, a home divisional dog, 0-2.
First home game. They almost won the most miraculous game. If they would have won last week, that was a true 99.999% melt by Arizona.
Yep. Big time.
But they didn't.
Again, it's Arizona's defense just putting their foot off the gas. Why don't you play the way that got you up 27-3?
Why don't you just recover the onside kick? It's impossible to not recover them at this point, yet Arizona can't even do that.
Yeah, right. It's like 93% or something are recovered by the receiving team. It's insane. But look, I like this team across the board. I love Bijan. I like Drake London. I think the Michael Penix Jr. hype is overblown and probably coming back down to earth a little bit at this point. I don't hate Kyle Pitts either. The only thing that slows me up on Kyle Pitts a little bit is there is some decent value at tight end this week. But I like Bijan. I like Drake London. I actually don't even mind playing Bijan and Drake London in the same lineup without Michael Penix Jr. And I think that may be a way to get exposure to this team, get a little bit different, not stacking with the quarterback, but still getting exposure to the two best players. Run it back with McMillan if you want. Run it back with Chuba Hubbard, who continues to get a ton of work. A lot of ways to play this game, but you know what? It's hard not to like those two guys.
Definitely. Bijan +1. He's like a quarterback to me. You can do Bijan London, Bijan Pitts. You know how I feel about him. He's unbelievable. They should give him more work. Obviously, you always have to worry about, and you're going to run into this at times. He's going to get in the ugly night game where Algier ends up, kind of taking the touchdown at the end. That's going to happen, but they're starting to get him more involved in the passing game. Penix is good for him because he's not afraid to just use him as a safety blanket. Another team, more pieces than stack for me. I like Atlanta. I don't like the Atlanta stack personally.
That's actually how I feel as well. Yeah, absolutely. And, we'll get to that later. We'll keep some of these questions in mind once we get to
I have a super chat queued up about the Caleb Williams lineup. We'll get to that for sure.
Do you have any interest in guys like Mooney?
No.
Okay. To me, it's Bijan and Drake London. I love these spots.
Yeah.
The only thing I'll ask you before we move on to the next part of this game, just one other question here, would be if Michael Penix Jr., this stack in general, ends up being super low owned once we kick off the next update, which will be shortly after we get inactives for this game or for the 1 o'clock window. If he is really 1% owned and Bijan is going to be extraordinarily popular at 21%, do you not think there might be an argument there to getting some of the stack instead?
Always an argument when you're talking about a low-owned stack, but there's a lot of low-owned stacks today. And yeah, if you're playing like a bajillion lineups, you probably have small pieces and you might be able to get over on 4% in the portfolio. I try not to say that because then you can make a case for all of them. I'm playing some weird stacks today. The Falcons are not one of them. I'll tell you this. Bryce Young is one of them, though. I have some Carolina stacks today.
Okay.
I'm doing it the opposite. I'm using Young,
Really?
McMillan, Chuba, and Sanders, a mix of that. And then I'm bringing it back with the Bijan or Pitts, less likely for London, but that type of mentality.
All right. Look, I don't hate it. You have Jatavian Sanders. You have a spot last week where Bryce Young was forced to throw 55 times, which isn't exactly a good thing, right? Because you look at these guys like, oh, Sanders saw 9 targets. Yeah, 16% target share. I'm actually a little bit surprised that we're only getting a little bit of McMillan here. But again, I think some of this is coming down to lineups looking way differently now than they would have earlier in the week if you sim them out, because you have a lot of value in other spots. And it's going to eat into that exposure you'd typically get to a $5,900 McMillan or even a Chuba Hubbard, right? Like Chuba Hubbard in a spot like this, on another week, he could be 20% owned. But now he's just not getting anything because of all the value that's opening up there.
Yep. And that's just, again, a product of the slate. You can use it against the slate itself. So it's not to say that the Panthers, first of all, and I want to speak to both sides of this, you look at some of the stuff and you're pretty encouraged. Man, wow, a lot of targets for this guy, a lot of targets for that guy. Bryce Young, he almost threw the ball 60 times last week. Everybody got a lot of volume. So keep that in mind when you're looking at this. That's not reasonable to expect, particularly if they're playing from ahead. And that is possible here. But I think Hubbard will get his regardless. And McMillan, to me, is still going to be perpetually too cheap until they start raising his price. He's just a player, and I think he's got a good spot here.
Yep, couldn't agree more. Reese, I agree. He said, I can't find the advanced stats on JC Horn right now, but he's been the best. He's been fantastic. Yep. And that is something to consider going into this game. One other things I would caution you guys on too. I agree with you for the most part on Carolina. The one thing I will say is if you saw any of that game last week, Atlanta's pass rush, they might actually have a pass rush. You go out, spend an early draft pick on an edge rusher, right, on a pass rusher. You go and make some acquisitions in free agency. This has been one of the most, one of the worst pass rushes in the recent years, right? They got to McCarthy 6 times last week. Their pass rush does look a lot better. They've got some names in the secondary, but they're incapable of holding up if you can't get to the quarterback. So just food for thought. If Atlanta starts being able to get to the quarterback more, you are going to start seeing this defense shape up, not just there, but the secondary and the pass defense is going to look markedly better as well, because you need that help from your defensive line. Yeah. So, yeah.
Fair enough.
But Bijan, I'm not telling you guys anything you don't already know. Bijan's my favorite play from that game.
Yeah, I'm not telling you anything either. One of the best plays on the slate.
Yeah, it's hard for me to not get there, even if Algier still gets some work. I want to sprinkle some Pitts and McMillan in as well. Those are my spots. Green Bay at Cleveland. All right, little bit of a scare here, Ben, earlier in the week with Tucker Kraft. I don't understand why reporters phrase things like, yeah, he shouldn't be out for the season. It's like, oh, what is that? He shouldn't be out for the season. And then he's just okay. So he's going to play. Tucker Kraft's good, but you lose Jaden Reed. This team deals with injuries constantly, man. Just never ending. I don't love the Packers at all today. And maybe this is just my overall year-over-year kind of like perennial stupidity when it comes to Cleveland. I like the Cleveland defense. I'm not saying necessarily from a DFS perspective, but at home, against like a non-Lamar Jackson type quarterback, I think Cleveland's defense is enough here to at least make this a spot where I'm not in love with Green Bay today. And the biggest thing with Green Bay is even without Reed, they spread the ball around so much that on a 13-gamer, am I really trying to figure that out?
This would be the second home dog that I bet today in the Cleveland Browns.
I took him at 9.5.
Yeah, anything better than a touchdown to me is playable. Mm-hmm. I am playing some of the Browns defense. It's the flat min. I don't really understand that.
I play him too.
That's absurd. Now, on the other side, to the Packers, you summed it up. They've been like this. Even when Reed last year, he was quote unquote the alpha at times. He was getting like 4 targets a game. They distribute the ball all sorts of places. Golden hasn't made an impact yet, but if you look, every game he's got 1 or 2 targets that are potentially home run. You've got Wicks, you've got Dubes, you've got the tight ends, you've got obviously Jacobs. Tough team. I'm going nowhere near the Packers. There is a chance that I don't have a single Packer in any lineup today.
Why do you know it's Romeo Doubs and you refuse to call him Romeo?
I can't. Okay, it's Dobbs, like Josh Dobbs. Okay, I started with Dobbs. I got flipped to Dubes, and now every time I'm about to say his name, I'm like, don't say Dobbs because it's Dubes. But if I would have just stuck with my original thought, I'm just calling him Romeo from now on.
Call him RD. Yeah.
RD.
We've been doing this. This is like the 3rd year where we've
I can't do it. There are golfers like that. I just can't.
I hear you.
Do it.
I have certain players that I've never been able to say their name correctly. Like Carrion Johnson was another one. Good thing he's out of the league. Matt Sheets, what's up, coach? You guys rock. Good luck today, my French coach. As you too, man. Good to see him in the DF in the Stokastic streets around here. All right, with Cleveland, couple questions, comments coming in on Jerry Jeudy. I'm with you guys. I think it was you. Wasn't it you that made a point on the first look show that we did on Tuesday when I was like, man, that was a great point, and I could not agree more with it. When you were saying, no, was it not you saying? Maybe it was Greg, but
no, it actually was me about Jeudy.
In essence, like you could play Jerry Jeudy in a good matchup, and he'll be high owned, and he's just as likely as having a bad game as he would if you play him in a bad matchup, and vice versa. So why not just play him in a spot where nobody wants to play him? Because he doesn't actually exploit the good matchups, but in bad matchups, he might just go for 150 and a touchdown. That's essentially what you were saying. So you'd rather play him when he's unowned in a tougher spot.
Because why not? I call it, and again, it's probably not the perfect example. I always say Gabe Davis as an example of this. It's just Jerry Jeudy, there's no real rhyme or reason for when he blows up. It's not like, oh man, it was a prime matchup. Yeah, and sometimes he has 4, and then he has 30 in these other. He's just a high-octane guy. He's going to have some slate-breaking performances. And so far this year, it's just, Fannin has been good. Tillman's catching the deflections. Like, if Jeudy catches that deflection, it's a whole different conversation today for people. They see that he scored last week, and people are playing Jerry Jeudy for no reason whatsoever. That has no indication of anything. So I just like the spot, and it's the type of player I know every time I click him into a lineup, there is a very real chance he is the absolute demise of the lineup. But he also could win me any tournament that I play. That's just the nature of Jerry Jeudy.
So are you willing to bump him a little bit? Just get a couple. You don't need a lot, by the way. You do not need a lot.
Nope. You don't need a lot. You shouldn't ever play a lot because it's just too much risk. But yes, I am manually boosting him a little bit. And then I will, you talk about this a lot. When I favorite my lineups, I'm going to make sure I don't want to group 15 of those at the top or something where it's like I want a nice mix of him in some lineups that I pick, not all Jerry Jeudy, obviously.
Yeah, exactly. Listen, if you're playing like a 5 max and you had 2 Jerry Jeudy lineups, you're gonna have
you're bold person.
But I agree. Harold Fannin Jr. is fine, Ben, but overall, tough game. It's more so that I don't like Green Bay than I like Cleveland a lot, right? That's the way I see it.
Not a good game on either side, though.
We agree, though, if you end up needing a $2K or $2,200 defense, the Browns are worth a shot.
100. I mean, I think that you could argue that any defense that cheap is basically worth a shot, but they are actually a good defense on top of that, and they're at home.
The Pittsburgh Steelers are 1.5-point road favorites against the Patriots. There's no Christian Gonzalez today. He remains out again. That is a tough loss for this team, dude, because their secondary has really struggled through 2 weeks without him. When you miss a guy like that, it changes everything. And then you've just got massive injuries to Pittsburgh as well. Highsmith, Elliott, Porter Jr., they're all out. I don't know if Derek Harmon is going to play. He's currently questionable. but that would mean that you possibly have 4 guys out. That's tough, but I think he's going to play. I don't know if he's going to be limited or not, but I think he's going to play. Besides the point, there is one spot that I kind of like on this Steelers team. Actually, there's 2. And I feel like this is one of those teams that people probably don't want much to do with after a pretty disgusting performance last week against Seattle at home. Jaylen Warren had a ridiculous catch and run. It did not go for a touchdown, but it was a beautiful 64-yard catch and run. The fact that Kenneth Gainwell has ran more routes and has been targeted more than Jaylen Warren is a travesty, and once again, a testament to Arthur Smith's, I don't want to say incompetence, but clear stubbornness. I'm not sure how stubborn you can be, though, when you have a surefire Hall of Famer as your quarterback. Like, I understand that Aaron Rodgers is in a lesser form than he once was, right? Maybe his words don't carry as much weight as they did back in Green Bay. But when Aaron Rodgers says this guy, he referring to Jaylen Warren after that game, is like a clear RB1, and I need to get him the ball more in the passing game, and he needs to get more work, I'm willing to take that with at least a little bit more than a grain of salt. I actually like some Jaylen Warren today at 5,500, given his ability to compete in both the run game and the passing game. And I like DK Metcalf. We have a lot of Steelers. I think you tamp that down a little just because I never want a third of my lineups having one defense. But you know what? I do like some Warren. I do like some Metcalf. And I will have a couple low-owned Rodgers stacks simply because this Patriots secondary without Christian Gonzalez is a true liability. So this may be one of my kind of low-owned spots of the week. I don't hate the Pittsburgh Steelers against the Patriots, especially coming off an underwhelming game at home.
Yeah, there are some things to like here. You hit on, I think the main one is Jaylen Warren. Not only does he stand up on his own, no doubt about it, playing well. You mentioned can't really be phased out, anything like that. He is the pivot right next to Mason. So if you look at this and you say, okay, I'm landing in this mid-5s range, Jaylen Warren is going to be the guy, Mason's going to be the guy most people click to, but Jaylen Warren's $100 more, and I don't think he's really going to be phased out of any game. So you look at that, he's going to convert almost all of his receptions because of the nature of them. And then if Rodgers, he does carry some weight. It's a competitive game. Total's not horrendous. It's in line with most of the other games. I'm not going to go, and I know you just mentioned only a couple of potential Rodgers stacks. I don't think I'm there, but I am in on Warren. And if you get to Metcalf, I feel pretty similar to you in that he's just a fine play. So the Steelers have some utility in a game that I would expect most people to probably gloss over, in all honesty.
I think you're right. Look, the good thing about this is you don't need to have any crazy, you don't need to take any insane stands this week. And I think that's probably what I end up doing. But I do have some Jaylen Warren, and I have it in some of my 3-max too. It's not just in the larger field where you can spray and pray. I do have him in a couple of those lineups. But I don't hate, I really don't hate a few lineups going maybe Rodgers, Metcalf, and Warren. I don't think it's insane at all. And you look at our exposure, I got some in the Sims. I got 11% Warren, 9% Metcalf, and I'm about with the field on Rodgers. So I'll take it, man. I think it's fine. If you end up sprinkling in a Calvin Austin or whatever, I'm okay with that too. Now, where do you go with New England? Because even with how much Pittsburgh has struggled lately, this feels like just another one of those teams where, I've been saying Ramondre is going to be the number one for at least a little while, and felt like I was vindicated last week, although I didn't benefit from it because I bet all of his overs in week 1 and he came in under on everything. But at the same time, they spread the ball out at an uncomfortable rate too. Stephon Diggs, to me, still hasn't proven that he's the alpha in that offense. So what am I actually supposed to do with this team today?
Not much. That's my answer. I like them a little more in life than I do on this slate. I'm a Drake May guy. Hunter Henry, definitely a solid player. I'm going to loop in this super chat from earlier in the show just because Hunter Henry was involved. It was a 5v5? Caleb, DJ Moore, Nico, and Pickens, and Bowers, or Wentz, Chase, Jefferson, Pearsall, and Hunter Henry. I would go with the Hunter Henry side, but you have 2 very good choices there. I just like the look of Wentz to Jefferson. I think a lot of people are going to go to Mason today, and that's a leverage spot. But Having said that, though, I don't think you need to force Hunter Henry into your lineup, and I don't think you need to force in any New England into your lineup. I wanted to ask you this just to bring it back a little. You said maybe you get some Rodgers stacks. You looking for a run back, or you don't care?
No, I genuinely don't care. If I land on some, fine. There is zero chance I force a run back for the Patriots.
Yep, I agree.
Because I don't really feel like trying to figure that out, and I know there's a lot of sharp DFS players I've talked to before, and they're like, I'm not forcing a run back when, like, if they're all projected around, like 8, 9, 10, 11 fantasy points, why are you really trying to force that? It's different than forcing a run back with like the Rams where you have a Puka Nacua and a Devontae Adams, so no, not really all that big on that, but it's more Pittsburgh that I'm willing to take some shots on. Anyway, here's a game I want to get to and talk to you guys about and really dive into this with you as well, Ben. I'm excited for this game. I think this could go I really think this game could go in many different directions. And I'd love to know where you guys are at in chat here as well. Because this could be this game could be the difference maker on the slate. I really believe it.
Oof.
I'm not saying
it's not.
I'm not saying it's gonna be, but I'm saying it could be, and it feels like a lot of it is going overlooked. It's tied for the second highest total on the slate with Denver and the Chargers. It's only behind Dallas and Chicago. And I look at the Rams, and I see a few players here that are going to get some ownership. Puka Nacua, Devontae Adams, essentially nobody else, right? I like Nacua here. What I'm trying to figure out is how do the Eagles play this defensively? Like, does Vic Fangio shadow Devontae Adams with Quinyon Mitchell? And then does Cooper DeJean see all of Puka Nacua's slot reps or slot snaps, and then when he's outside, they double him? Because Adoree Jackson's like the real problem on this defense that could not be good for the Eagles. I don't know where you guys stand on this one, but I'm telling you right now, I'm going to have some Hurts and A.J. Brown's skinny stacks. I'm going to have some Barkley, but after you've been carved for 500 yards from scrimmage and 4 touchdowns by one individual player in Barkley last year, and A.J. Brown's been so quiet through 2 weeks that everyone just assumes he's left for dead, despite being on one of the biggest contracts among all receivers in the NFL and one of still the most dominant and talented wide receivers in the league. I just think it's one of those things where I say I have to find out, and if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I need to find out if Hurts and A.J. Brown are going to have yet another game where they suck and Witherspoon is out, which means you're looking at Emmanuel Forbes and company out there trying to contend against a big-bodied, big catch radius receiver in Brown. I'm doing it, Ben. I'm going to have some Brown, Hurts, some Nacua run backs, and there's just simply no way I can't.
I'm fine with that too. Friend of the show and super chat legend Goody was just saying these quarterbacks are going overlooked, and you can do it both ways. Stafford double with one of the big Eagles coming back, Saquon, Brown, Smith to a lesser extent. Sure, I totally get that. I would prefer to go the other direction and go skinny Jalen Hurts and bring it back with one of the 2 Rams weapons on the outside. I think that's my preferred way to do it. It's still tricky, though, because, better than me. You're a Philly guy. Philly can play anyway, but if they don't need to, they won't. Look at last week. They could have taken some shots, and they just didn't because they were in full control of that game, basically, with just doing what they were doing.
Dude, you're bringing up a very important point, and that's why I think it's essential we talk about that, because is it the new offensive coordinator and all of them this offense just sucks now? Or is it that they didn't really need to do anything? Also, Kansas City's defense is good. McDuffie might be the best corner in the league. And then I've said this throughout the week. You guys have heard it if you watched any of the shows we've done. But that Dallas Cowboys game, the Eagles moved the ball at will with zero resistance until that extended lightning delay. And then they come back and it's just like, all right, well, both of these teams are out of sync. So, yeah, man, it's a weird game. the other difference here is the Rams can truly push the Eagles. So remember last year against the Steelers when Hurts was like, is that what you wanted to see against the Steelers? And I say that because they were like, man, he's throwing for 100 yards per game. And then he goes out there, rips off a massive, efficient passing game, and they go nuts. And he's like, is that what you wanted? He's like, because we can do that too. If this is one of those games where they do that or they have to do that, I'd at least like a little bit because I don't think they're going to be very popular. So that's just the way I'm playing it. I still have some Barkley too. Overall, what I'm saying is I just like this game in general.
I like it too. I would, again, you can speak to both sides of it because you're going to see an Eagles team that would prefer to continue to do what they're doing. And if they can, they're gonna be very, very methodical and limit the variance and do all that stuff. But the weapons are there. The total's in line with all these games are sandwiched. Like you drop 1 point from this total, it's like the fourth worst. It's ridiculous. I'm fine with it. Saquon he's not lost by any stretch. It's just he's competing with a lot of high-priced backs today. Bijan's up there, McCaffrey's up there, Bucky, so there's room for him, but he doesn't stand out amongst them either for me. Jonathan Taylor. So I like this game, but the beautiful thing about it, it doesn't have to define my slate. I'm kind of playing this just to cover a couple bases rather than saying this is my big stand of the week.
That's fair. The fact that Barkley had both of his games against the Rams last year were 200 plus rushing yards and 2 touchdowns with massive breakaway scores, one of which was in the playoffs in the snow. I want some of him for that reason, but then that's why I want the stack for the other reason, because do the Rams not come in and potentially just say, like, we have to stop Barkley?
Potentially.
Right?
Yeah.
I simply just want to find out. I just want to find out, right? And if I'm on the right side of thinking, I want to get rewarded for it, right?
Well, again, this is one of the many situations where if Hurts goes out and throws for 330 today, secret's out that they can do that.
Yep.
So you can't really wait for that. I'm going to bring up this. This is cool. How would you say that name, by the way?
Jay Nevy.
Jay Nevy.
I think that's what I've been calling him for a long time.
Okay. Well, Jay Nevy.
That's his name now. Hey, okay. Wow. That's your name now.
RD, Romeo Dobbs, won a satellite, and he's playing in the 5-5-5 for the first time, which is awesome. Can I play a chalky Bears, Cowboys, or do I have to get different? How different do I have to be in that contest that only has 6K entries? First of all, awesome. Good luck. My main thing, I get this question all the time. Don't treat it that differently. Yes, ownership will be a little more zoomed in. People are a little sharper, but just do what you do, honestly. You can play the chalky stack. You're going to be more crowded. You can mix it up, but I don't think you really, and Loughy, you may disagree, I don't think you have to change up that much. If you're using our tools, slide the scale to higher stakes and set it for around, 5,000, 10,000, something like that. But I would just build. I probably would mix it up just because I think that stack's going to be overowned, but you certainly don't have to do anything.
No. And look, if you're saying, like, should I go Caleb plus Moore and Odunze with a Lamb run back plus Walker and Mason? Probably not. But to Ben's point, you wouldn't want to do that in any contest.
Also, this is a personal thing. You got to decide what you're really after. If you're like, this is my shot and I'm going for it, I want to win the 5-5-5, then take some shots. If you're like, this is an opportunity and a min cash means the world to me, I might play like a pseudo cash lineup and say my ceiling is limited, but I have a higher chance to min cash. I personally think you should go for it, but you may, it's all personal circumstances.
Yep. Kirk, is it even worth playing Dak stacks? He doesn't run, and if this game goes off, it'll be because Caleb keeps pace. We'll talk about that, but in short, yeah, there's always reason to do it. You can get different too. Anyway, Indianapolis at Tennessee. The Colts are 4.5-point favorites. Let's dive into this. Before we do, though, Ben, probably a good time, I think you would agree, to remind everybody they can get a free month of the Sims. They can get as many you can free roll the entire NFL season by simply clicking the link in the description. that talks about signing up with any of our sportsbook or pick'em partners and just making a minimum deposit, placing a bet, and taking a screenshot of your welcome email and your first settled bet. That is it. Then you just email us. Tell us what you want. If you sign up on Caesars, Fanatics, and Chalkboard, that's, I think, 10, 5. It's like $20 total dollars in deposits. That is 3 free months of The Sims for whatever sport you want. You're talking about the pre-contest simulator, the single lineup sim where you hand builders can sim them out and get instant feedback on all of them. You can lock players. You can adjust randomness, ownership, player projections, everything. All of the tools that we have, right? The late swap tool, the post-contest sims, the boom bust, the top stacks across the board. That's all you have to do. And, there wouldn't be much reason to promote this type of stuff if we weren't going into this and being like, yeah, there were literally 3 Millie Maker winners last year with the tools. I remember this one on Thanksgiving. I will not forget that one. Our boy Road Trip. I remember this one too because he hit me up in the DMs. And then Rick, how about Bunk Cake with the Millie grabbing that super low on 2% James Cook, Ben? You remember that as well. There's simply no easier way to just grab access to the Sims.
100%. And like I said, they stack. It's a simple process. Follow those instructions, claim it, email us, and you're ready to rock. Very, very simple stuff. And if you're saying, man, a couple months, I know I'm going to be playing, I see these tools, well, take some value right off the top. Secure your process for the rest of the year with a couple of these. And then, again, in the perfect world, go over to Tails and get to tail some bets with us as well, because you're going to have some bonus money to play with on the betting side.
Yeah, man. But even if you're in a non-legal betting state, it doesn't matter. As long as you click claim offer on any of these, when you sign up and make it 5 or 10 deposit, because that's what the minimum is on all of them, that's it. That's all you have to do. And then just take the screenshot of your first settled bet or lineup and welcome email. Email us, tell us what you want. Every single one of these equals another month of the Sims for whatever sport you want. It's that simple. That simple. All right. What do you think about this Colts spot, man? And I ask you because everyone is riding high on the Colts right now. And Danny Jones, they look legit. They look like a very good football team. I'm a little bit different here, or maybe indifferent, outside of Taylor, who I like quite a bit. The Titans are only 4.5 point home dogs. And this feels like this is the fishiest game on the slate for me, truly. When you look at a line like that, I mean, this line was 3 not long ago. To me, it's a very fishy number, and it feels like Tennessee competes.
Get one of your sound effects ready.
Hold on. Wait. I will even pull your tweet up as well. I got you covered. Don't worry.
That's not where it's going. First, double hot take. Double Mega Mind Genius. We're doing 1-1. The Titans are going to win the game. I like the Titans in this game. I took the points, but the Titans are very live to win this game. This is not saying the Colts aren't good. This is just a bad spot to me. And then, give me one more quick drum roll.
Oh, happily. Hold on.
Cam Ward and this Titans offense is playable today. I like this as my craziest stack of the day. Give me some Cam Ward +2. You have options. I could see Tennessee factoring into this slate. Right.
I like that. I also noticed earlier today you had tweeted something right here.
Yeah.
And with the Io Manor fade. So this is basically just like you get the Jonathan Taylor, but then Io Manor also feels like he would be the wrong move here. I love what he's doing. I think this guy is great, and I hope he continues to play well. But still, might just like I like what you're doing here. I mean, it's crazy, but like you said, it may genuinely be crazy enough to work. There is a world where this game stays much closer than we think, and Cam Ward finally puts together a decent performance. I can't imagine you're going to have a lot of that, but my guess is you might run it in one of those like mid-high stakes single 3 max contests.
Yeah, I'll probably run it. So like there's a $33 5 max that I really like. I play that every week. It's one of my favorite contests. He'll be in something like that, maybe like a $50 red zone, single entry, because no one's going to do that. Why? Because it is a really low probability of working. But I actually think that the Titans showed some promise. Colts have easy run backs. There's also another way to do this with Tony Pollard, who, and we'll throw this up at some point in the show, we included, you and me, we made a 4 touchdown, anytime touchdown parlay. We do it every week. And Tony Pollard is in there. I think he's very live to score today. I think the Titans factor into the slate. I even have a little Titans defense. A lot of Tennessee shots. And the beautiful thing, they all are very low owned because of the nature of it. So you don't have to overhaul your lineups.
I mean, you've got this beauty up there on tails that we put together as a team. One of these will end up hitting, and that's the thing. The A.J. Brown plus 210.
Yeah, I wonder who gave us that leg, I wonder.
That bounces the odds pretty heavy. Went with a couple chalky spots, fine. But Pollard is not that chalky. A.J. Brown certainly isn't. You know, there was another one that I thought about putting in there. By the way, you can hit that fire emoji. Another thing, if you're seeing this, you can tail this pick, right? If you tail it, we have it AI map everything now. So AI maps this in the parlay. You no longer have to put it in. You click tail, it loads it straight into your bet slip. So all Ben did was take a screenshot over on tails, and now you can tail it, right? It just AI just generates the slip. It is super sick. I think you guys will love this.
It's absolutely sick. It's so sick that we're actually just giving you a preview behind the paywall. It's not out yet. It'll be out this week though. Very, very cool stuff to map. And yeah, this is a good game. You were mentioning for different reasons, the last game, Rams Eagles, this to me has all sorts of potential. This game could get out of control because there are plenty of ways, not to hedge my bets, this is just the truth, where the Colts just absolutely roll and the Titans are forced to throw the ball like Carolina last week, because so far the Colts have looked literally unstoppable.
They've looked good. So your favorite way to play this?
My favorite way to play this is the most contrarian way, which is a Titans stack with a Colts bringback. The most logical way to play this is to, I think, take Jonathan Taylor as a piece and then just either roll in someone on the Titans or do nothing else with the game. But keep an eye on that. It's funny, Daniel Jones has been nothing but outstanding, and I don't really find myself wanting to chase that today.
I don't either, oddly enough.
Oh, also, look at this. Nice comment here.
Awesome, man. Appreciate it. The Faceless Man 82. Yeah, thanks, dude. Look, the DFS community is a tight-knit community, but it's not expanding like it was however many years ago, right? Especially since the inception of online and legalized gambling, sports betting. But, man, I love seeing new people jump into the community. There's nothing better than seeing somebody discover DFS like in 2025 and go, oh my God, what was I missing all these years? It really is the most fun thing in the world. I don't care what anybody says.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, when you're climbing the leaderboard and you've got that shot, there's no doubt. I mean, I think about this every day. I say this to May every morning, and then it absolutely doesn't come to fruition. Like, in 8 hours, we could just win $1 million. Like, somebody's going to win $1 million off like $20 today. That's pretty nuts. There's not many things that you can do that. And it could be somebody watching the show or on the show. That would really narrow it down.
Can you tell me what you want to do with the Jets at -6.5 here? It's tough, man.
The Jets are getting 6.5, but yeah,
I'm sorry. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, of course. But no, it's a weird game. Both sides have some issues, I will say. One of the new quarterbacks, I would say Mariota is getting the most buzz. Then you've got people talking a little Wentz. Who the hell's talking about the Jets situation? Is anybody going to do that? Is anyone going to go with the easy skinny with Garrett Wilson? I still think that has some utility. You mentioned the drop-off from Purdy, and you thought maybe it was a little overstated. And I'm a big Fields guy, but particularly with the passing, how big's the drop-off here?
I thought the same thing myself, honestly. I mean, Tyrod Taylor's not exactly a world beater, but none of these backups are. Do I think
Pretty
that
solid.
do I think we should get a little bit? This is where I'm going with this. I'll keep it very simple. Do I think it makes sense to get a little bit of Garrett Wilson? Absolutely. He's probably, a bit overpriced right now, which is sad because he's so good. But Garrett Wilson is the type of guy that can kind of create his own results in the sense of he's played with really bad quarterbacks for a long time and is always capable of putting up quality numbers. What sucks is the touchdown equity here. Kalijah Cansey is on the IR, though, and they've got a couple injuries for Tampa Bay. But aside from that, still a pretty good defense at home. It's sprinkles of Garrett Wilson here, maybe a couple lineups with Breece Hall, nothing else outside of that. I don't hate the $2,200 Jets defense, though. Baker Mayfield in this offense actually hasn't been great. Ibuka is expected to play, but he's going to potentially be limited. They still have no Chris Godwin. And on the offensive line for Tampa Bay, this is actually a pretty significant deal. They have injuries, right? Like they have injuries.
Don't say.
What's that?
Yeah, I just mean they're missing like their guards all got hurt, and then whoever they put in there got hurt.
Dude, but not just that. Luke Gedicke's on the IR and Tristan Wirfs is out. It's like their two best guys. So, yeah.
We saw that against Houston, and particularly late in the game. I mean, Baker's Baker, and credit to him, he makes plays, he makes it happen. But he was running for his life. Ibuka also, again, I'm not a doctor. He didn't look right late in that game. He did not look good. They wrapped his leg. So I worry a little about the Tampa offense. There are still pieces, but to your point, the Jets defense, which has been underwhelming, they're going to get the number one thing when I think of a defense, what I want is pressure. That's the opportunity to get lucky, to get tip balls, to get fumbles, to get whatever is pressure. And the Jets should get pressure today.
Right. So at 2,200, just add them into the bucket, right?
Yeah, 100%. Just if you need a cheap defense, they're with the Browns, and I will use them confidently if I have to.
Where do you stand on the Bucs then, dude?
Honestly, I don't really have a lot to say. I'll keep it very simple and very quick. To me, there's two main weapons. You have Evans, you have Bucky, and they're fine at their price points. They don't stand out at their price points, but they're absolutely fine to me.
I probably like Mike Evans a little bit more than you do here, but that's like the one spot. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what's happened to this Jets defense. I'm okay with Mike Evans. Right now in the Sims run, I'm getting 15%. I'd be fine with that. I'm also not entirely convinced that Emeka Ibuka is going to be limited. Whenever they say they're going to monitor their snap count, it's like that doesn't mean anything.
No, especially with running backs and receivers, because it's like he could play 50% less snaps, but if they target him on every snap, then he'll be extremely busy. Like those guys, most plays that they're out there, they're doing nothing. They're not getting the ball. So it's like he could play less snaps and he can still have 8 targets. And that's just it. You mentioned that with Judkins a little with Cleveland, where it's like, well, if he's just out there getting the ball every time he's out there, I mean, what can you do about that? So I still don't want to get to him though.
Yeah, I know. Well, look, Judkins is one of the, I had said, keep this in mind going forward. If Judkins, I almost hope he has a bad game. So you can look back, because last week he played 20 snaps and had 13 touches, which is crazy. The guy wasn't even with them over the summer. So, yeah, you're right. Remember, Puka Nacua came back from the IR last year. We had no idea what was going to happen. It was that primetime game. And he just had like 100 yards in the first half.
Yeah, I remember that.
And his receiving prop was like, what, 30?
Yeah, I remember that too.
So I don't know, man. I like some Mike Evans. I'll get to a little bit of Bucky there. Rachaad White that's the thing about this too. Rachaad White's never going to be the bell cow, but he's still good enough to have some involvement. You know, you're in my, like, our dig on Rachaad White was never about him personally. It was always that he was just a little bit too expensive for his output. But I feel like we played him every week for a season when he was in that like high 5, low 6 range.
Oh yeah. That's one guy I not to jinx myself, I tend to just get right because he's the type of guy at 4K, he'll get you 16. At 6K, he'll also get you 16. And at 8K, he'll also get you 16. So like
right.
As the price went up, the value went down. He's a very consistent, good player. And he's a great complementary piece to Bucky, to the point that we saw it late in the game. Those were crucial snaps, and Rachaad White was out there. So keep that in mind. Bucky's still playable, though.
And it doesn't mean that he's going to get them every week. More than likely, he's not. But he can, and that's the scary part. There are other running backs on this slate at a similar price point. They don't have that threat breathing down their neck every single time. Anyway, how do you approach the Bengals today? This is a game that would have been fun if J.J. McCarthy, and not that he was playing well, but like when the schedule makers, when you draw this one up, you're like, ooh, J.J. McCarthy, and this looks pretty good. Joe Burrow, Justin Jefferson, and how about that? On the other side, we've got Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. This is going to be fun. But now it's it's Carson Wentz and Jake Browning, who, look, he's acquitted himself relatively well as a backup in the many games the offensive line has costed Joe Burrow due to injury. But now, Mason and Kenneth Walker are the two best values on the slate. If you wanted to play Wentz and try and stack them, fine. I had some disagreements with Greg here. I'm curious to know where you're at. I'm not very high on having like a Wentz plus Mason plus Jefferson stack. I don't love the idea of getting to this Minnesota team when it's Wentz plus Mason. That's just where I'm at. I know the Sims are going to give me some of it, and maybe I'm seeing this wrong because they're so cheap, and I shouldn't worry about that.
I guess split the difference. I'm more against that than for it. It definitely can work because of the price points, but you need a lot of raw. If you really think that works, I would take a more linear approach and I would just bet the over on the Vikings team total. Because for that to actually work, they need multiple touchdowns to distribute. There's just not enough raw yards to go around. So you could just go to the betting markets and maybe ladder up their team total and do it in a more linear way personally. But I'm fine with the pieces. I won't have them together. I do think that Jefferson is interesting on his own because if you do go there and he hits a true ceiling game, the chances that Jordan Mason hits a ceiling game is almost zero.
Right.
So you're killing the chalk on the own team because he can isolate all the touchdowns potentially. And then you have, like the Hawkinsons of the world and stuff like that. I softened a little on Wentz just because there's so much value out there. I think he's fine, but there's so many cheap quarterbacks. Jefferson, probably my favorite piece of this game. Yes, I'm playing Mason, but so is everybody else.
Do you intend on having a bunch of Mason?
I mean, a bunch, yes, but not any more than how popular do you think he'll be?
Well, that's the interesting thing, because if he's around 30% and I'm at like 90%, I'm still well over I'm still actually being different.
Oh, yeah, that's a position for sure.
Well, I'm just saying, a lot of people assume that the only way to be different with chalk is to fade them when that's actually not true. You can just get massively overweight as well.
Definitely. I'm not doing that.
No.
But the other thing I think people overlook, this happens a lot. They're like, Jordan Mason, what are you doing with him? And it's like, nothing, really. I'll probably have around 30%.
Yeah.
He's not going to matter to me in that sense. You don't have to make a radical stand on the chalk. You can short them, you can jam them, or you could play a position that's plus or minus 5-10% and live with a nuanced outcome.
I haven't finished building yet, but I think the one reason I could end up getting overweight to some of this chalk is because a lot of my stacks and builds just look a lot different than what I think is going to be popular within the field.
Yeah. And that is if you've leveraged elsewhere and you like this guy's floor for sure. I get it. Listen, he makes a lot of sense. We put him in the touchdown parlay. So I get it. I absolutely get it. But you mentioned Jaylen Warren. I mentioned Tony Pollard. I love Bijan. Christian McCaffrey we haven't talked about yet. There's a lot of running backs on this slate. And Mason could have a good game. He could be the best point per dollar. And it still might not matter because there's so much value elsewhere and raw points. Is he really outscoring Bijan and McCaffrey and Jonathan Taylor on raw points? That would be a hell of a feat.
Good point. There are a lot of good running backs to where even if these chalky backs are good today, it might not be enough. Yes. Although they are pretty cheap. Favorite way to play Cincinnati and Minnesota before we move on from this one?
You have Mason. We know that. To me, it's still target the alpha receivers on both sides.
You're still okay with it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess I see where you're coming from. What do you what's the ownership going to be on these guys? Jefferson's still at 12%. Are we getting any Chase?
I didn't get any this morning.
No.
But I mean, I only made like a couple rounds.
6%. That's really low.
Yeah, for Jamar Chase, off like 15 targets in the last game when Browning was playing.
16, yeah.
What's the problem? I don't really get it, to be honest. He's going to be force-fed the ball.
You know what I'm having a tough time with is this game right here. I really don't know what to make with this Houston game against Jacksonville. The Houston offense, Ben, like genuinely kind of feels broken right now. It feels, and I have a lot of respect for Tampa Bay's defense too. You know, you saw it last week. And the Rams, that game was in LA to open the season. The offensive line, I know you watched some of that game. I mean, CJ, they were just, and you know Todd Bowles likes to bring guys as well, like to the, but still, there were times where CJ Stroud just had zero time. There was actually, I should rephrase that, a lot of time where CJ Stroud had zero time. Jacksonville, believe it or not, does have a couple guys that can get to the quarterback, okay? We saw that last week against Cincinnati, albeit losing in a losing effort, which is really, really bad. Trevor Lawrence, a couple of those spots you can blame on the receivers. Brian Thomas has not had a good season so far at all. I don't know if it's this reported wrist injury or what. I might get a little bit of Nico here. And you know what? Maybe this is just a game where Nico goes nuts, but maybe I'm just a little like shell-shocked after seeing how this offense has failed to function through the first 2 weeks, Ben. Maybe you can talk me out of it.
No, not really. I mean, the Texans, this isn't super actionable to the slate, and I don't want to speak too bluntly, but their window seemed, if they had a window, it seemed shut. Like, it seems like the Chargers passed them amongst other teams already, and you've got the Bills, the Ravens, the Chiefs. Like, good luck. I like their defense. Obviously, like, Stingley is a problem for other receivers. This team has serious problems on the offensive line, and Stroud, I don't know if he's making it worse. Like, I think a lot of times when you talk about the Bears offensive line, they got issues, but I think Caleb makes it worse a lot. Stroud, I don't know what's going on there. Nico Collins rises above all of this. I will still play him. I'm not going to play the running game. Chubb did break a nice touchdown run, but I watched that game. That was very fortunate. That
he was bottled outside of that one play. He was bottled up all game. They can't block.
No. There's nothing here for me. I wish this game didn't exist, obviously.
I do too, but I will say it one more time. You should not fully sleep on Nico Collins today. You can, I'm telling you, no matter what happens in this game, I think sleeping on Nico Collins could be a mistake. He's
the best
still
player in this game.
Yes, he's still supremely talented. We just saw what Jake Browning did against this Jacksonville defense last week.
And Jamar Chase.
Right, well, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, like with Jamar Chase. So we're talking through it now, and I hadn't thought too much about Nico. I'm actually gonna force him into a couple spots here. And here's again another example where, Ben, maybe you do have like a Kenneth Walker and Mason line. Maybe it is a chalky lineup, a chalky Chicago build. You slip a Nico Collins in there as one of your pay-up options at low ownership. That makes it a little bit unique right there alone. You go back and look at some of the winning lineups last week or the week before. They're not actually that crazy. There was one I looked at and was like, man, how did I not? You know how a lot of times we look at it and we go, I could have never gotten there in a million years. Like, never would have happened. I saw some lineups in some of the like single entry and 3-max where I go, shit, I could have gotten there.
It's not, that's one of the, again, we have a lot of viewers who are kind of just playing DFS for the first time. You don't need to find, trust me, if a guy is like 0.1%, I'm telling you, you probably screwed up. Like, he's either not playing or you're taking a ridiculous, like if he's out there and he's a reasonable play, you know it. And that's just the thing with these type of things. So I'm with you, no doubt about it. We had a question about Kirk. I'm taking a wait and see approach with that. I don't really want to mess around. Nico Collins is the extent, and yes, he can differentiate your lineups. And isn't it great to get leverage on your best players? That's one of my favorite things to do.
couldn't have said it better myself. Yeah.
Jamar Chase could be the leverage today.
Right.
What a world.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Like, you're not trying to get the leverage on some shitty, 3K player that you're hoping gets 2 targets. Yep.
Exactly.
To that Christian Kirk point, I think Christian Kirk returning is good for Nico Collins. I think it is very good for Nico Collins to have some. When has Nico Collins had some of his biggest games? When you have a guy like Tank Dell out there as well, I'm not saying him and Kirk are the same guy. What I'm saying is it's helpful when you have someone else that can catch passes. Because thus far, Jalen Nolan and Jaden Higgins are not the answer, Ben, and neither is Xavier Hutchins. Like, those guys have not been the answer alongside Nico Collins.
No.
And they have no run game. So,
no.
Yeah. Are you playing anyone for Jacksonville?
No.
I have very little, and I don't think I'm going to try and change anything. I also have a ton of respect for Houston's defense.
So do I. The Houston's defense is awesome. There will be a world where my guy, Mr. Tootin, will have the backfield to himself in some world that's not yet. And he factors in enough where it kind of hurts ETN, who I also like in life. This is just not a good situation. This is a competitive game, but I think this game underwhelms across the board. You could play the defense, but you could basically always do that.
Yep.
Wow.
Dude, let me tell you something.
I can't tell, because you're such a good producer now, if you're hitting a new sound effect and it's a dog, or you literally have a dog.
No, that was my dog, and she was right behind me, and it startled me. I don't know if you noticed. I was deep in something trying to figure it out over here. That was hard. Go upstairs. Go.
You got to step it up. Dog. We need a tiger, a monkey. Get them on the show. Let's go wild.
Yeah, man. But check this out over on Tails. I really hope you guys will join us, because I'm pretty confident that you have a very good time over there. I really think you will. And if you look in the description, you see it down there. It's totally free. We're not just posting DFS content, but a lot of other stuff. I got an AJ Brown ladder in there for this week. Jalen Warren play. This one, for what it's worth, I got this at 19.5. Hat tip, Andy, my friend Andy Francis here. This one has come up considerably. Look, you can't feed your family with closing line value, Ben, but it at least helps when you get it, because you're going in the right direction.
Definitely.
That's all I can say. And then you can go in your. I want to show them something real quick though. Like, you go into your picks feed. See, I follow Greg and Ben here, and if you follow them, all the guys you follow are right here. It's really cool. It's really sick. And we're just adding insane features that'll be coming this week. So stay tuned, create a free account, follow the people you want. You can turn on notifications, and let's sweat some bets together. Let's play some DFS, get some DFS data together. I think this is going to be a place to go coming in the very near future, if not already, Ben, because there aren't places like this where you can just get good data, good bets for free with a seamless approach.
Yeah, you filter out a lot of the noise. Like, when I'm trying to scroll on Twitter, and my For You is really not for me these days. And it's simple. And the last thing, you already hit it. The notifications are awesome. I look down and boom, you drop something, I have your notifications on, and I'm alerted instantly. So I'm like, oh, beautiful. I have a play. It's very seamless, and it's a lot of fun. So the links are there. Let's get this game off the screen. I don't want to see Brian Thomas, the Jaguars.
I already moved the lower, brother. So we got.
Thank you.
We got the Saints and the Seattle Seahawks here. All right. Well, I don't know how much we need to talk about the Saints, but I can say this much. As much as I think this is a tough matchup, and where I truly believe it's possible that the wheels could fall off for this Saints defense going into Seattle this week, may fall off for the Saints in general. Chris Olave at 5,200, Juwan Johnson at 7% ownership, $4,900. They're still viable. You guys don't have to love them. There are 8 players in the league that have 20 plus targets so far, right? 2 of these guys are from the same team on the Rams, right? 2 of the 8, Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams. 2 of the other 8, Ben, are from the Saints, and it's Chris Olave and Juwan Johnson. That's pretty amazing, isn't it? That 25% of those 8 are constructed of Saints pass catchers. Have they been efficient? Not particularly. Are they still very cheap because they haven't been efficient? Yep. And at the end of the day, Kellen Moore is still a guy that's going to scheme something up better than we saw last year. Although you would have thought it'd be better. Kubiak's on the other side of this game now, as a matter of fact, and he's going to want to run the football. I'm just saying, you don't have to love Olave and Johnson. They shouldn't be X'd out of your player pool.
No, I mean, I don't know if this is good or bad, but honestly, Rattler hasn't been terrible.
No, he hasn't.
But they're still 0-2, and now they're playing a road game, and Seattle's going to be a very, very popular survivor pick, as they should be, and a teaser piece. 4 people, I'm fine with it. This is simple for me. To me, you have 3 Saints that are playable, skill position players. I'm not playing Rattler. I will pepper in Olave, Johnson at tight end if I want to pay down. Kamara if I want to be really different at running back. I don't love him this week just because of opportunity cost, and that's it. I'm not messing around with the stack here. I think that volume gets them there, but TD equity is very marginalized.
Yep. That's where I'm at as well. And there was a comment in chat pointing out that from Dirty Olave's had 1 million targets and done nothing. Yeah, but that's why he's priced like he's done nothing. He's 5,200. Also, he hasn't been like he has 6 for 54 and 7 for 54. That's not nothing in the truest sense. Like it's not horrible, Ben.
He's a touchdown away from having a really solid game at this price point.
Yeah, right. And it may not come this week. I'm just pointing out that he's getting crazy volume. Yeah, or ever. They're getting a lot of volume. And I don't ignore volume when it comes to TFS when they're discounted, even if it's a bad quarterback in a bad spot. But on the other side, yeah, listen, man, JSN dealing with an illness, but from everything I've seen, he should be good to go. Kenneth Walker, far outpaced and outproduced Charbonnet last week. Charbonnet had 15 carries for 10 yards. Meanwhile, Kenneth Walker had north of 100 on 13 carries. I had seen reports that Mike McDonald and these guys and Kubiak wanted to monitor and kind of limit his workload early because that foot injury wasn't 100% back. But what do you do now? He sure looked okay last week, and now Charbonnet's dealing with a foot injury. So I think they're going to spell some guys, mix them in a little bit, but yeah, dude, sub 6K Kenneth Walker's hard not to like here.
Yeah, definitely makes a lot of sense. Going to be one of the more popular players on the slate. You also have, this is a perfect team if you wanted to do the running back, wide receiver, nothing. You can take JSN and Kenneth Walker and you're paying 12-ish and you're isolating, not all, but most of the high-end offense on Seattle. So you can do that without having to get to the quarterback. They're a healthy team total at home in a game where I think the Saints are going to be one of, if not the worst team in the league. So there's a lot to like on that side. And yeah, Shaheed. We didn't mention Shaheed. The only reason I bring him back up for the Saints, he is in the Jerry Jeudy bucket of he's going to have 1 or 2 games this year of 30 and he'll have 0 in all the other games. Like he's that type of player.
Better yet, compare him to a guy who was on his team and took his role last year when he got hurt, Marquez Valdes-Scantling.
Yeah.
MVS was literally doing that. He'd have those games with like 2 touchdowns on 2 receptions for 110 yards.
Yep. Oh, believe me, I remember.
It's gross. But yeah, Walker and JSN, you want to get maybe a little different here. You play Walker and JSN without the stack. You play them both in the same lineup. A lot of people are very averse to, they don't like doing that. It doesn't feel right to them. I'm okay with it. If both of these guys go out there and Seattle manages to drop 30, I would assume at their respective price points, both of them can get there.
Oh, totally agree.
I mentioned earlier over on Tails, right? I was saying that I had posted that lineup where it was me just having fun with a contrarian build, posting it exclusively to Tails here and saying, look, this was from the perfect lineup video that we do. I know a lot of you guys watched it and appreciate you for that. But it was a Bo Nix stack, Ben. It was a Bo Nix stack, and I'm not saying you had to play this exact lineup, right? This was also before the Charbonnet news that came out Friday after this. But there's ways to get weird here where you still have a few chalky options, and it doesn't matter because the stack is not chalky. I know I'm not going to get to a lot in the Sims. This is a spot where I'm going to end up boosting them a little bit, and I just want to get to a little bit here. But this game, Denver's defense is still good, and you still have Pat Surtain, and you still have some good pressure that they can bring. But last week, you saw some holes, right? You saw some cracks in the armor. And Justin Herbert and company can move the football as well. Would you be shocked if this ended up shooting out? I wouldn't, and I want to play a few lineups with that in mind.
So the first thing that gave me hesitation here for myself, saw the game and I'm just like, not a good one. Well, the total would indicate otherwise.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, it has a 46-point total.
And it's competitive. So it's an implied total that's healthy on both sides. And you've got weapons, and they are priced pretty damn reasonable across the board. So this is something I'm going to have to kind of deviate in real time. Goody just mentioned absolute favorite stack. Nick's double run back. You could go full onslaught here. I want to pass this back to you because this is what I think the most interesting part about this is favorite way to differentiate to get leverage. I'm not sure you have to worry a ton about it. I think the stack itself is the leverage.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Like if you're playing a Cowboys Bears stack, you have to think about the stack itself to potentially get leverage on other Caleb stacks. With this, if you go to a Bo Nix stack, I don't think you really need to worry that much about like, how do I make a different Denver stack or a different Charger stack? You can go pretty vanilla there and know that you're already in a pretty isolated pool of people.
Bo Nix, 3% projected ownership, 6% for Sutton, 4% for Troy Franklin. There's not a lot there.
Mm-hmm.
And I will say on the other side of this game, with the Herbert stack, if you're trying to do it, I think what you're going to end up seeing, and maybe I'm wrong here, but Keenan Allen is projected for 14% ownership because that price point, it is broken for sure. I think Ladd's actually going to be quite a bit lower on than he is. I could see this being the Ladd game. Working out of the slot here, you kind of avoid that difficult Surtain matchup. Ladd gets open very, very well. Younger, still more spry than Keenan Allen. I like the Justin Herbert Ladd's stack here for sure. Even if it's a single, preferably a double, but I don't think you need to. Or it could just be Ladd as your run back.
Yeah, but again, that's a beautiful thing about this game. You can do it a lot of different ways, and they're all going to be somewhat unique. Yeah, it's not. I'll be honest. We did the first look. You always check that out right on this very channel on Tuesdays. I don't think we mentioned basically anyone from this. Was not a game even close to my radar.
No, outside of maybe like a cheap Keenan Allen, but yeah, we didn't. So to me, the absence of interest across the board makes me more interested, right? That's simple.
Oh, yeah. I mean, if this was somehow like a chalky game, I would definitely roll the dice and look elsewhere. It's just a game that's in the conversation. And listen, the Chargers have been awesome. They look great. And Herbert's got weapons. Denver has weapons, explosive weapons too. You're going to see some of these guys. It's just very hard to prioritize target share here, but that's okay because again, it's a low-owned stack. You can live with that uncertainty.
Yeah. McConkey, Allen, and Herbert, I like them all. I like this game. This could end up being like a 17-13 game for sure, or it could shoot out. I'm willing to take my chances. Let's talk. We got two more here. We'll turn it over to Live Before Lock with Eric and Spags. Arizona and San Francisco. You should want some of this game, Ben. I'm telling you right now. If you're talking about the Arizona side, it may be that Trey McBride just simply doesn't score touchdowns. It's true. I was listening to Levitan and Silva do their fantasy football like recap on the week, and they went all the way back to his high school days, and he was scoring like one touchdown a season at high school. And then in college, like one touchdown a season in college. Maybe Trey McBride just can't score touchdowns.
Maybe. I don't know about his high school stuff, but in college, he was playing for Colorado State, like who's not exactly a world beat. Like I would have loved to see him on Oregon, where they score 70 points a game and see what it would look like. But maybe I've been known to bet a Trey McBride anytime touchdown scorer here or there.
You got so lucky on one last year too.
Yeah, the only time he scored was a fumble recovery. That was a very useful. That's the exact feeling I need today, which is just, yes, that's what I'm talking about.
I still like McBride, though. I'm just saying it. I still like him. I'm the other side, though. How do you not want to get to San Francisco? I know that people are going to be, once again, unenthusiastic about Mac Jones. Fine, but this secondary is very banged up for Arizona right now. It is not good. It's very banged up. So with that in mind, and Juwan Jennings.
Yep.
Juwan Jennings is the type of guy that always plays through injuries, except he's out. And you've got a banged up secondary for Arizona. To me, like Ricky Pearsall, I love Ricky Pearsall in and of itself. Like play him in week 1, play him in week 2, played him every week. I am going right back to the well with Pearsall. His ownership absolutely will come up now that Juwan Jennings is out. But I love McCaffrey and I love Ricky Pearsall today. They will be relatively chalky. I'll find ways to get different elsewhere. I simply don't know how you get away from these guys, Ben.
Yeah, very, very fair. You definitely can play McCaffrey and Pearsall together without Mac Jones if you don't want him. You can also just obviously play them with Mac Jones. The Arizona side to me is a little more confusing because you still have guys like Marvin Harrison, I think, have been perpetually underpriced, but the slate is just pouring in value with every minute that passes here. That a guy like Marvin Harrison Jr. gets less and less vital for me as we go because I don't need a salary saving wide receiver as much. So Arizona to me has really softened my stance on them. I like them coming into the slate, not omitting them, but I'm not looking to get to them either.
San Francisco might be one of my most exposed teams right now.
With Mac Jones or just the skill position weapons?
Less Mac Jones. Dude, I'll go McCaffrey, Pearsall, no Mac Jones, and I won't bat an eye at that. I have 100%. No problem.
But right? It goes off a cliff after those two, right?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I don't want to play, musical chairs with those tight ends and any of these kind of tertiary pass catchers. You don't need to on this slate. Pricing, there's still too much value. Why am I trying to do that? By the way, I wanted to point one more thing out, and then we'll close it out with this final game, Ben. But for me, McBride, McCaffrey, Pearsall, 3 of the best plays on the slate for me. With JSN, there's a world here where I may actually just overload on Kenneth Walker to like the nth degree and then go underweight on JSN. If he's like still kind of sick, but he's active, and you're dealing with flu-like symptoms, and you're going up against the Saints, Clint Kubiak may just run the shit out of the ball today.
So I don't know if this is even a hot take, and it's not an either or. It doesn't have to be this. But if I had to jam one of the chalk running backs, I would jam Kenneth Walker before I jam Mason.
I don't think that's even a debate. I couldn't agree more.
Okay. Yeah.
It is a debate based on ownership, but I'm saying like as far as agreement goes, yeah, I wouldn't fight you on that at all.
Yeah. So if I'm looking to really just say this is going to be a guy that I really over allocate, it's going to be Kenneth Walker for me, not Mason.
I'm with you. All right, let's wrap it up. Final game. We'll toss it back over to Live Before Lock. Eric Lindquist, Chris Spags coming up next. I'm just going to cover this a little bit differently. You have CeeDee Lamb, Jake Ferguson. You have Dak Prescott, George Pickens, all of these guys. Pickens, by the way, who I know his target share doesn't look all that great, but he's drawn a ton of penalty yardage on DPIs, on passes downfield. Like he's always capable of popping off for a huge game. I love this game, but it's going to be really, really popular. So how do we play it differently? One way I think you can do it. You're not going to like this, but I think it's viable. Ben, I am going to have some Cole Kmet, and he has played 90% of snaps. What's that?
No, nothing. Go ahead. I got thoughts on the Bears.
All right. I'm going to play some Kmet. Played 90+% of snaps. He's running routes on like still 77, I think, percent of dropbacks over the first 2 games. He's not getting a ton of targets, but he's had a couple downfield. He had a 31-yard strike with Caleb Williams. Is it gross? Yeah, it's gross. But if you're stacking Caleb Williams, how everybody's just going to go to Rome Odunze and DJ Moore. Like, is that going to be the chalkiest 2-man stack that we see on the entire slate?
Definitely. And for that reason,
so give me a little Cole Kmet.
You make a very compelling argument. Now, the disturbing thing, what I was kind of interjecting with is the Bears have an interesting strategy. They drafted multiple weapons that they don't seem to have any use for in Loveland and Luther Bird. I'm not sure what's going on there, but to your point, the numbers are the numbers. Cole Kmet is the guy that's out there, and that's a different way to do this. So I'll probably have a little just to be different within the stack. And like I said, to Goody's super chat on that Chargers game, I just want to illustrate the same point. This is where you need to be thinking about the stack within the stack. Like this game is going to be crazy popular, both sides. People are going to be stacking Dak +2, Dak +3, Caleb +2, Caleb +3.
Right. Walker Ashley says Ferguson over Kmet easily. I mean, yeah, obviously. If you're talking about just raw scoring, and he's going to be way more popular. So, of course, Ferguson looks like the best. All I'm saying is there's ways to play it differently. You go Pickens and Ferguson without CeeDee Lamb and run it back with a Dunze, people aren't going to want to do that.
I have one of those that I like.
So do I. It's a great game. This isn't even one you need to spend that much time on. I would just say probably want to play it a tiny bit differently. Deron Bland is out. You may be without Trevion Diggs, but that would actually probably I would probably rather have Diggs in if I'm stacking Chicago with how bad he's been, man. You know, he's just been – Trayvon Diggs has not been good. And then Jalen Johnson's out on the other – like these teams are – this could end up being a crazy game, but also the level of incompetency that we've seen from Chicago over the years that still appears they haven't stopped the bleeding in that respect. If this ends up being in a game where like Dallas's defense just looks like a world beater again and Chicago's terrible, I'm not going to go, how did that happen? I'm going to say it's Chicago. I get it.
Yep. I hear that. There's just a lot of weapons to go around here. The stacks may not hit, but I find it hard to believe that somebody in this game doesn't produce a really, really reasonable output.
Before we get out of here, this is the final question, and appreciate you guys hanging out with us. For all of you that took a single second to tap that thumbs up.
Oh yeah.
Appreciate you. What did you set it at? 6 what?
631. As usual, right on the nose.
We're at 6. There are clearly 31 people out there that would be kind. Yeah, enough.
And shout out Jeff Williams. I want to get to that question on the way.
Willing to show some magnanimity, Ben.
I don't know what that means.
Thumbs up.
Isn't that
That's all we ask for. That's it. Anyway, give me the guy who you're gonna need that will be in the Millie Maker winning lineup today. And don't tell me like Mason or Walker. Like to me, I'm gonna go. You don't need it. Look, I'm just do what you want. I think it could be the Nico Collins spot that nobody sees coming. Give me Nico.
All right. Before I answer mine, I do want to give a shout out to the super chat from Jeff Williams. Real quick, thoughts on rushing alt props? Walker, Jonathan Taylor, Mason, 50+, 60+, 60+, -118. Just shop it. I'm fine with that. I'd probably roll an anytime touchdown with one of them and kick out one and go 2 instead of 3, but they should all potentially play from ahead. So I have no. I
don't love taking a 3-leg.
That's what I mean.
Alt rushing prop for a high injury prone position where you're getting -118 on a 3-legger. Like I don't like that at all. Personally.
You have to shop the lines. The alt lines usually juice you. I'll go more extreme. Jerry Jeudy.
Yeah, all right. I love it. What a way to turn this one over. Chris Spags, Eric Link was coming up next. Appreciate you guys. Have a wonderful rest of the day. Enjoy the slate, and we'll catch you back here for the next one.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome to NFL Live Before Lock here at Stokastic, presented by Tails. You guys got to check out Tails, tails.bet/Lindy. That's where you can find all of my goodness. But tails.bet, that's where you want to be heading right now, checking out all of the free content from so many different experts. Awesome opportunity to jump in there while we are on this show, talking DFS for the next 80 minutes with you. I'm Eric Lindquist. This is week 3. We're ready to break it down, and I'm here with my good friend, third week in the books here now for us, Chris Spags. Go follow him at Chris Spags. Go follow his Splash Play podcast over at YouTube's as well. Really good stuff. How you doing, my dude?
Excited to be here. The wife is currently literally leaving the house, heading to LA for the week. So I'm going to be on dad duty, doggy dad duty, all by myself with all this great football going on, Eric. And it's adding to the stress levels along with possibly the chalkiest sim week I think we've seen since the Sims existed. So that adds to the stress levels here on this fine Sunday.
Yeah, the stress levels are high, especially now that we got official word that Jauan Jennings, I didn't think we were going to get this news for later. And I'm a little bit disappointed because if you've listened to me for the last 5 years of doing this show, I love late swap. It's been a big part of my process, always has been, always will be, as long as DFS remains in its current iteration, where you're able to pivot your lineups as news comes out. And it's kind of a bummer because Ricky Pearsall, that was going to be one of my gigantic stands. And now Spags, I mean, I have to redo everything while we're on this because this news came out way too early.
Yeah, and the issue with Jennings, too, and we kind of saw this in week 1 where Jennings was banged up going in and out of the game. Kittle left early in that game. It also greatly changed the workload for Christian McCaffrey, and I think that's part of why he was not the best week 2 chalk, was that they had a week to game plan, had Jennings being a meaningful part of that passing game offense. You know, now it seems like I would think at the very least projection-wise, if not in terms of how the actual game flow goes, you're going to get, I would assume, more McCaffrey in the mix. He becomes a more important play on this week where you can afford that third RB in the flex alongside Jordan Mason and Kenneth Walker. Pearsall's projection has to come up. He's certainly still a boom bust play. You run the risk of the Niners offense just somewhat cratering as well, given the fact that you just lose one actual guy that command targets. So it matters quite a bit, even though Jauan Jennings is probably not the highest exposure, highest owned play of the week.
Yeah, we've got ourselves getting some updates, as you can see in the top right-hand corner. We are just kind of waiting on projections and ownership because it's going to look very different now that we got the official confirmation on Jauan Jennings being out. It affects Christian McCaffrey to a little bit of an extent. He was already insane on this slate. He's going to look insaner to some extent, like maybe a fantasy point pops somewhere here or there. But the big one, Ricky Pearsall. And now, is this an MVS week, Chris Spags?
It's never one.
Chat in my life. You know that this is where I was going to start because Marquez Valdes-Scantling, noted burner for the Kansas City Chiefs, noted burner for the New Orleans Saints, noted burner for the Green Bay Packers. I did those completely out of chronological order. Kendrick Bourne and him basically running wide receivers, 2 and 3. It's a little sketchy back there. It's a little sketchy.
There's definitely opportunity. I mean, Jennings last year was a guy commanding about a 29% target per out run rate, which is, you know, just shy of that 30% mark that I tend to hold as like a really important marker for how a guy's performing. To lose him in the mix, I mean, it does open opportunity. Like I'm not the MVS whisperer, like our pal Eric Lindquist says, got him right a few times, even on the Saints last year when nobody was playing him. So I give you all the credit in the world there. But it does seem a little murky to expect him to take over that role. And you know, Kendrick Bourne offers some similar things to Jennings as well.
EMAC knows. MVS noted burner of Lindy's money. Yes. Except for 1 week last year, I almost got back to even, but I didn't get back to even. Little, what was it? 4K takedown with MVS going out there. Back-to-back weeks. The believers, they got paid off in week 2 of that little stint in New Orleans. And then I think he just went back into, he's like the groundhog. He just went back in for another couple months of winter or whatever. But MVS living rent-free for the rest of my life, friends. For the rest of my life, I was so convinced that year in Kansas City. And that was like my first big exposure to best ball, was having like 80% MVS to watch him put up 2 every week. But that's neither here nor there. We're going to go position by position like we always do. You guys are going to check out Tails here while we're at it as well, because then I can talk about it at the midway point. You'll know exactly what I'm talking about. But head to OddsShopper, head to tails.bet. Check out all the goodness that we have going. We got Greg Ehrenberg in the streets. We've got my guy Loughy in the streets giving out free picks for you every single day. And then myself and Jazzraz DFS. You just saw him on the last show, Ben Raza. We're covering all of our bets on a daily basis. I've thrown all my pick'em plays in as well it's really good times to jump over to Tails. You can download the new Tails app. Yeah, it's spanking new. It's beautiful. And I love the black and orange. Black and orange, it goes back to my high school days. Just looks great. I just think it's a classy look. So Tails, get free picks for every single game that you've got here on the board for today. I've got a ton of stuff. I just posted a ladder for free. We'll talk about him at the tight end position. Can't wait. But now that I clicked on that, now I got to find my overlay again. There we go. Here we are. Let's start breaking down this slate at quarterback. You know what? Sometimes the self-production game, I thought it would change. It's staying the same. Hate it or love it. Jalen Hurts sitting here at the top end. Baker Mayfield as well. We got some early quarterbacks if we're trying to pay up, trying to get to some of the expensive dudes. Jordan Love, oh boy, on the road here. Green Bay's first road test. We'll see how their offense looks traveling out of Lambeau. Justin Herbert as well, just been redonkulous, pulling the most ownership as he should be. And Kyler Murray sitting there at the 6K range. You got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 quarterbacks here, Spags. Look at that. I can count. Who are your favorites to get to for tournaments today?
I mean, Herbert, it's hard to ignore how much he's coming up across sims, really all over the industry. Top sim player on Stokastic as well. Definitely you are getting a good amount of exposure to Herbert, it seems like, relative to a matchup that people don't seem to want so much based on the DVP stuff, where Denver has been a good secondary for a while. But as Loughy and Ben talked about in the last stream, it is one of the higher totals of the week for that Chargers-Denver game. And Herbert has been playing out of his mind this year. He's a guy that I'm not in the bag for like some other people are. I feel like Herbert's had a lot of defenders on the internet. People go into war over Tua Tagovailoa, guys like that. And Herbert's been the clearly better player than that. But this year, he's kind of gone to another level. 0.5 EPA per pass is like an incredibly high number. It'll level out a little bit as the season goes on. But to start the year, he's playing really well. 87% catchable ball rate, also playing very well. And to me, most important, the team's running a lot of motion plays. So that's something where even the best defenses, the fact that the Chargers are running 32 motion pass plays a game, that just throws off a defense like, like a shitty defense in particular, but even a good one like Denver. So I think for Herbert, he's the guy that stands out based on the data. And I think just knowing how the field works, if people don't want to play Herbert versus the Broncos, you do get him a lot naturally in the sims. So I got 6% of my 150 of Herbert, which is technically a little bit under the field, but he's a guy that I think as I'm running through things here, trying to boost him a little bit more and trying to not ignore the sims on a week where they're actually giving you something, kind of unique to go with all your chalky RB plays. I think Herbert's the guy.
Yeah, I'm glad I got a lot of bets in this morning, and over the course of the week, I try to get my bets in as early as possible, especially because, closing line value, big part of trying to be successful at that long term. I'm glad I'm playing less volume than normal because I had a feeling something wonky was going to show up. I want to add some lineups, I suppose, now, and maybe get a little bit more with the Pearsall news, but yeah, it is what it is. I think for me, it's just hard on this show to be able to figure out exactly how I want to handle all of these pieces, but that's what the Sims tool is here for. It's going to be able to take care of us here. And so as we get the updates, I'm curious what's going to happen to some of my Justin Herbert exposure as we start getting some of these random cheapies on the San Francisco side. Curious where we get the Kendrick Bourne projection at. Curious where we have Ricky Pearsall for sure, and see the push and pull because the afternoon is wide open with some amazing games. We've got Denver, LAC. We've got New Orleans, Seattle, which obviously two mega chalk pieces on the Seattle side. And I think one of the best tournament plays in Cooper Kupp on the slate coming off of nine targets, 7 catches last week. He can definitely still, get a little bit of something done. I know the juice didn't look like it was there with the Rams at the tail end of last year, but that's also a veteran at the end of a lingering injury football season like Cooper Kupp always has. Arizona, San Francisco obviously became way more appealing on the San Francisco side. And the game du jour, Dallas, Chicago. So no matter what, I think we're sitting in a pretty good spot having some Justin Herbert exposure, but late swap, reacting to news, trying to get an idea of where the rest of the industry is landing with some of those ancillary San Francisco pieces. I think that there's really appealing tight end options all over the board as just like pieces to bring along for the stack. Not necessarily with the Chargers as much when you have Johnson, McConkey, and Mr. Keenan Allen out there, but such is life. I'm with you. Justin Herbert's my favorite. And, whether you were a stand before the year or after the year, you can't deny the first 2 weeks of his season Spags have been just incredible.
Yeah, I mean, and frankly, for me too, like I am a long-term Baker Mayfield guy, and I have been on him, a lot last year. Week to week was also just seeing the results and how he'd constantly be a top 5 QB. And I still like Baker this week, but I just think really data-wise, it's important to say that the data really supports Justin Herbert this week. Stokastic has had him as a top projected play as well for QB, and like I don't know, man. Herbert, I just think people, especially the people that are just, phone shitter bros, the guys building lineups in the Millie Maker today, not paying a lot of attention. They're just going to go, oh, Denver's defense is too good. And look, and I feel that way too. But when the data is pushing you to Herbert and people won't play him enough, you got to at least be with the field, I think.
Shout out to the spam bots. Glad that they're up in the morning getting that work in. Get that work in, Devin. Don't give up. Another one.
I'm killing them, by the way. I'm clicking this stuff. I'm using all my video game fast Twitch speed here. I'm getting these. Half the job, I feel like, of being on stream these Sundays is like banning the spam bots.
Well, I mean, it's that, or we just let them live their lives and give us the porn that they want to.
Sure. Don't want to get on the AI's bad side. We know that.
Yeah. Happy Sunday to everybody. Anyway, I'm just kind of sitting here waiting for the world to change. Let's see, John Mayer style. All right. I'm feeling pretty good here. I've got the other sim rocking here, trying to get everything so that I can carry it over as we're talking about it. But let's dig into some of the other quarterbacks that are pulling even more ownership on this slate. And as we start slide to the left, we got Bo Nix in that same game environment, a little bit higher than the sub 1% he had in all of my single entry last week. Man, there are a lot of slates where when that Cowboys game doesn't go completely berserk, Russell Wilson berserk on the other side at even lower ownership, like 0.3%. Yeah, I was probably sitting really good with that Bo Nix exposure. Wild that they ended up losing that game at the end. Matthew Stafford, Dak Prescott, kind of sandwiched here as well. Matt Stafford, I mean, he is just never coming along for the ride, even though Puka Nacua. I think there's a little something to be said about Devonta Adams today. We'll talk about that at the wide receiver position. But Caleb Williams is, I would say, like one of 2 or 3 viable quarterbacks that we've got for cash. I think for tournaments, he's still going to pull a lot of popularity. Might depend on what some of my other lineups are doing and how some of the early pieces, especially some of the early chalk pieces like Jordan Mason do, and really kind of evaluate my lineups from there. And then I'll see how much Caleb Williams I get to. But no matter what, I want more than that of Bo Nix. I think Dak Prescott, under any circumstances, is somebody that I want to have exposure to with CeeDee Lamb, who gets to go up without what? Every cornerback in Chicago is out for today? Like every single one, Spags? I mean, this is just an awesome range for tournaments. And I'm just curious to you, like between Dak and Caleb Williams within that game environment, we have Caleb projected for a little bit more, but I feel like for tournaments, I just want to take the Dallas passing game all the time.
Yeah, the Sims seem to really love Dak. 16% exposure is what I got in the run I had here, which granted is not accounted for some of the Juwan Jennings stuff in particular, but should be a pretty accurate read here. But Dak would be the tied for the highest exposed quarterback on the slate for me. Caleb Williams not too far behind at 12% exposure, Dak at 16. Look, I think that this game is certainly, I've been talking about a lot this week. It's one of the most obvious ones on the slate, given how high the total is. And the fact too, that both defenses have been egregiously bad. Like Dallas, incredibly bad, running endless zone, not really playing man because they have to cover a lot of warts. Can't really afford to put guys on an island, but they still end up with that a lot. They've been terrible. Chicago, like Eric mentioned, very banged up. They've also been giving up incredible efficiency to anybody going against them. So I think really to me, the big thing is like, this is very chalky. What I would try to do is segment things a little bit where if you're playing Dak and Caleb with Jordan Mason, with Kenneth Walker, with Trey McBride, you are at that point is building a cash game lineup, and you have to be mindful of that. One of the guys in my Discord pointed out something, and he's a very sharp DFS players guy, OMG, who you've probably seen do occasionally on DraftKings. He was saying something to the effect of like, it's been talked about so much that Dallas Chicago is going to be overowned that maybe people end up playing it a little bit less. And I think that's probably your one hope if you are going, heavy Dallas Chicago. But to me, like both guys justify it. Dak's not running as much as I would like to see, but in terms of like a pocket passer, he's throwing for roughly the most air yards in football through the first 2 weeks and getting pretty good results with his pass game core, and probably should get better as well when Pickens starts to actually get targets and convert some of the red zone looks he's had into touchdowns. And for Caleb, even though people want to shit on Caleb, like he's been fairly accurate this year, throwing a high catchable ball rate. He's running 5.5 times per game, including in the red zone. So like, I think he's got merits as well. And as a DFS play because of the rushing, I think he's got more merits than Dak. So it sucks to be with the chalky stack, like just knowing what we know of game theory. But when the Sims give you this much and the Sims also give you as much, Jordan Mason and Kenneth Walker, the Sims are kind of saying these guys are such good plays this week that you want to be above. And, you can always critique Sims and how they rely on the underlying data. The underlying data says play Dallas, Chicago, play the chalk RBs, and try to figure out how to get unique around that.
Yeah, the underlying data is going to change a little bit here. I have no clue exactly what's going to show up here with some of my new quarterback exposure. I thought, hey, I'll deal with the late swap element after the show. Nope, we're going to deal with it while we're on the show here and figure out exactly how much the field is going to be getting of some of these other pieces. But now I'd say it's just basically choose your adventure or, pick your fighter, do whatever you want. We got Michael Penix up against Carolina. It's always good to be facing Carolina, but you can see by his projection and ownership that it's not exactly like he's being asked to do much other than hand the football off to Bijan Robinson and run that way. Run that way, Bijan, because he's very, very good at that. CJ Stroud sitting up against Jacksonville, another great spot to be coming into. I don't know what to make of Houston's offensive line. It's obviously been a stone cold disaster, but I think the biggest thing is just you need to get any semblance of a run game going. I mean, imagine the Chargers if they had any kind of a run game going. Imagine Houston if they had anything with a run game going. They get Christian Kirk back. We'll see him today, this week. I don't really have a ton of interest there, but CJ Stroud's at least interesting for tournaments purely with the Jacksonville. I think Michael Penix, even against Carolina, will probably be off the card for me. But Daniel Jones, probably the best 2 weeks you could possibly imagine for Daniel Jones in an Indy uniform. We got Jake Browning up against Brian Flores. That'll be a fun matchup, that's for sure. Trevor Lawrence. And then my favorite, Drake May, who I didn't have a ton of against Miami. I have a ton of him in best ball because I absolutely love Drake May, but I don't know if I want to play him if he ends up getting to like the 8-7% type number, which I'm seeing him in some cash builds for people this week, which is absolutely asinine to me when we have 4K quarterbacks. And then we've got Caleb Williams with the projection he has. I feel like those have to be kind of your cornerstones if you're going to be going that direction. But I think Drake May for tournaments right now, he was going to be the guy that I pushed the most here in this range. Who's the guy that you are backing in this range for tournaments?
I mean, the guy would still be Caleb for me the most. Okay. And, my ownership is the highest for Caleb and Dak and then the 4K guys. So just to disclose that up top, I do think Stroud has a compelling argument to be made, mostly because of the fact that getting Christian Kirk could be a part of why this offense has been so shitty to start the year. Like he was heavily involved in camp, was a guy that they were talking up a good amount as being like a 1B guy to Nico Collins. So I think getting him in, you can maybe take a shot on Houston, the hope there. But really the big thing that stands out to me is that Jacksonville's defense has actually not been particularly good, kind of getting lucky with the fact they have a 6.3% interception rate, roughly a little bit more than 2x what the league average is. They've been kind of benefiting from that. They're not actually deflecting a ton of passes. The catchable ball rate's been a little bit lower than it probably would be normally. So I think going to Houston, I'm not personally going on my way to get Stroud, but there was one thing that looking at the data this week stood out to me. And I think Jacksonville's really due for some regression in terms of giving it more production in the pass game, and maybe Houston has a shot to do it. But I think Daniel Jones would be the one I would want to gravitate towards the most. I think he's the guy that really, in terms of just what he's played so far this year and how he's played so far this year, incredibly inefficient, really doing a good job as well with the catchable ball rate, 87.5% there. He's also another guy benefiting from a lot of motion during run plays and pass plays, most play action plays as well on the slate. They're running 12 play action plays a game, which opens up Daniel Jones a little bit more to get that efficiency level up. I think Jones is good. I don't think sim-wise he comes up a lot because of how much the ownership is kind of congregating other ways. But I would say if I was going to pivot, I think Jones would be the guy for me more. He's not a Drake May believer, and it seems like the sims, whether it's Stokastics or other ones, Steelers D comes up a lot. And I just, Drake May, I think, got the best run out possible last week versus the Miami team that was not very good in that secondary in particular.
Your favorite player in the range was who?
In the range, it's still Caleb, but I'm just making the case for the other guys.
Oh, no. Who's this?
Daniel Jones.
Who?
Daniel. He's not Mike Jones.
Back then, hoes did not want him. Now he's hot. Hoes are all on him. That is the Daniel Jones story. It's also just me. Don't listen to me. I'm absurd at early hours of the morning. We've got ourselves other guys that we can look at in the range. We got to go down to the very bottom. We started at the bottom. Now we're here. And Marcus Mariota, I'm just going to make every pop culture reference I can. 18 and change up against Vegas. This defense, obviously, it doesn't help to have no offense on the other side really popping, although Jacoby Myers, we'll get into him. We'll get into Ashton Genty, who, God forbid if Ashton Genty ends up coming to fruition, but really hasn't happened here early on. But we got down here in the cellar two guys that are very interesting for tournaments. Carson Wentz, it helps to have skill position players. It helps to have Justin Jefferson in particular. I'm curious what happens with his ownership in relation to Jordan Mason and how many Jordan Mason plus Carson Wentz lineups exist. I'm kind of letting the Sims tool do its own thing, and I'll parse it out here live on the show for the next hour as we get everything updated, as props start rolling out. That's a big part of being able to make sure that we are accurate and making sure that we have some boundaries in set for some of the San Francisco numbers. But I look at Mariota, and I think that there's a case to be made for just like playing him naked, not necessarily having to bring McLaurin or Samuel, just because of like how many good mid-range 4 and 5K wide receivers we can take shots on. I mean, every Charger, Troy Franklin. I mean, I can name a bunch of guys now, Ricky Pearsall and anybody in a San Francisco uniform. Like, there's so many of these mid-range guys that we don't have to force a stack partner that's too expensive for Marcus Mariota. And we obviously want him to run in some way, shape, or form. Not that he's going to do Jaden Daniels things, but he's been functional at that, whether you go back to Oregon days, whether you've looked at him at Atlanta as a starter or other place, Tennessee as a starter, like he will add something with his legs. And I think that just makes him an appealing. He would be my cash game quarterback. I ended up withdrawing a lot of my cash double up stuff just to be able to focus on this show and just focus on tournaments. But Marcus Mariota, friends, he's going to be popular, but Spags, is he too popular for your tournament builds at 11%?
No, I got him more in 16% in the top 150 that I pulled here from Stokastic. I also, frankly, got more of him in the lineups I pre-built before the show as well than I would have wanted to. I did go the other way, though. I did 4 stacks with him just because the fact I believe that people are going to play him naked a little bit too much. I certainly can see a world where a very sharp DFS player, or even a totally not sharp one, hits the nuts around and builds the parlay, the unstacked Mariota like that. That can absolutely win. But I do think trying to single stack with an Ertz, with a Debo, you want to buy the upside of McLaurin. I'm not quite sure he gets loose this week because this Commanders offense has been playing it like way too close to the vest to start the year, much like they did for a large part of last year until towards the end of the season, they kind of let things go a little bit more. We're right back to square one this year to start. But I think for Mariota, what jumped out is that he threw a high catchable ball rate last year, 88% rate for him in the games that he did play. I did start one when Jaden had the rib injury last year. And he's looked, when he's played last year, I say this is somebody that always has too much money invested in the Commanders on a best ball basis the last couple of years. He played pretty well when he filled in for Jaden last year. The issue is he runs a little bit less. He doesn't quite have as much juice and does seem a little more skittish throwing the ball than Jaden does, who's always so well comported back there. But that said, Vegas and Washington, 2 teams that run a lot of plays. That stands out to me as well. Vegas running 63.5 plays per game right now. Washington running 65. The fact you might have some more pace there. The fact as well that the Vegas defense has not been very good, giving up a 0.17 EPA per dropback, a 0.16 EPA per pass. We're talking about towards the bottom of the league there. I think it's a decent spot for Mariota here. And I think in particular, if you stack them up, you have a shot in tournaments. And that's something that Mariota's a lot cash game play, right? Like we agree with that. I normally don't want to do the cash game guy as my stack QB as often, but I think he fits both. And I just don't think people are going to stack him up enough for large field tournaments.
And that's kind of where I humor me a little bit here. Let's talk about this. And I mean, there's no other quarterback up here that I really want to be playing the same way that I want to be playing these two guys at the bottom of the end. Mac Jones, I think, is somewhat appealing at 5K, just to like at least throw his name out there, especially with the McCaffreys and the Ricky Pearsall ownership that I'm sure we're about to see. If they both find success, well, I'm probably going to want to have some quarterback exposure. We just saw that with Goff where, hey, that can really work out for you. And people have the remember me game from time to time. But the tough thing for me with Mariota, who's your favorite stack partner for him? Because mine is just different than I think the Fields is going to be.
Is yours McLaurin?
Mine is definitely Zach Ertz.
Oh, okay. I mean, I like Zach Ertz too. Like I definitely ran some doubles with Debo and Ertz and hand build some ones I did before the show. So I'm with you on that. Ertz is getting good red zone targets. A tight end does sometimes for a backup and a rookie becomes their best friend. I think Debo would still be my favorite compared to Ertz, but those were the 2 I really forced in. I'm not sure that Mariota like cuts it loose. And this is the big McLaurin breakout game. And he really needs to get there now from deep shots, but Debo checkdowns, Ertz kind of 10 yards and falling down kind of stuff. Yeah. I think it's the best route for the stack hitting with Mariota.
And then Carson Wentz. This is kind of my thinking of this entire thing. So Marcus Mariota, it's a tight end where tight end is going to have a much more bunched range. It's hard to find that kind of separation. I think I like Carson Wentz more in tournaments, and it's purely because of Justin Jefferson's existence. We have so many wide receivers that are coming up later. I love where CeeDee Lamb's at, but so does the field. I love where all these guys are at. And so it's always relative to like, what else am I bringing along for the ride? And I'm sure that stack partner is going to be somewhat popular, but I'm sure there's people who are going to run this and be like, I have a 4K quarterback. I don't have to stack him up or do anything else. Justin Jefferson is pulling 13 and change ownership. He had some of the worst quarterback play in the entire league for the first 2 games. I mean, say what you want about JJ McCarthy, he's young, he can figure it out. He's just been atrocious through 2 weeks outside of like a fourth quarter in Chicago. And I think this is one of those spots where we could just see, kind of like what we saw with Malik Neighbors at times last year, Brian Thomas at times last year with Mac Jones. What if we just see this massive consolidated volume that just goes to Justin Jefferson because you get the ball to your best player, and Carson Wentz is a vet who I think should be somewhat capable of doing that in a way where like a pocket presence of JJ McCarthy just wasn't really cutting it. I don't know. If we get this kind of difference in tournaments, I think I'm probably going to have more Carson Wentz in tournaments than Marcus Mariota.
I'll have more Mariota. I mean, in the semi-round here, I got 16% Mariota, 13% Wentz. But I see what you're saying about Wentz, and I would say that like I get it to some extent. It certainly seems to me like if you're talking about like pivots, Wentz plus a stack is the pivot to the Mason ownership, whereas the pivot to the Mariota ownership is going to be going like JCM or something like that.
Correct.
And trying to capture it that way. So I think in terms of game theory, Wentz is a stronger play than Mariota. But in terms of like the rushing upside, like Wentz doesn't run at this point. Mariota, I talked about, like he's had some sample size of playing for Jaden last year. He was still accurate. He was still efficient and all that. Wentz has not been good the last few stops. So I think at this point, the hope is, and I see people in the chat saying it, your hope is that it's like Kevin O'Connell's latest reclamation project. And now Wentz just being in the room for a month and change is now going to make him so much better. Like Daniel Jones being in the room last year prepared him theoretically to be the Colts starter. I'm not sure, like, I don't think Wentz is good enough to be that. So that's sort of my concern point is we're now getting a worse version of JJ McCarthy against the Cincinnati defense that's not as bad as people seem to think it is either. But look, I get it with Wentz. I think he's worth the exposure. The Sims are giving you, 2x the field as well. But I just don't think he's very talented at this point. If he's great, like give all the credit to O'Connell personally. I just don't see Wentz being that guy anymore.
I mean, there was a very clear line in the sand also for my Minnesota Vikings last year. Darrisaw's back today. I don't know how much we're going to get out of him if he's going to be able to play every single snap, but there's a very clear line when things went wrong in Minnesota after an unbelievable start to our season. It was that last play of the first half when we were just trying to run out the clock with Aaron Jones inside of like our own 5. Could have taken a knee and just gone to the half, but no, we had to run a play for some reason. Darrisaw ends up tearing his ACL. That is all she wrote. And from then on, Darnold was seeing ghosts. And I mean, McCarthy looked exactly the same way. Our left side of the offensive line, there's teams that have found patchwork fixes, whether it's Tooney with Kansas City last year, now in Chicago, whether it's Joe Alt going from inside to the outside to left tackle with San Diego. Darrisaw is, I believe, the best left tackle in football. And getting him back from Minnesota, I think just helps the case for the running game, helps the case for everything that has to do with Carson Wentz and giving him actual time to operate. But we'll see how many snaps he ends up playing, but just another plus, something that I wanted to point out that I think makes it a little bit more appealing than what I think the situation's been for JJ McCarthy the last 2 weeks. All right, we just got a projections update. I'm waiting on ownership to update here as well, but wanted to make sure that we did that correctly for you here over at Stokastic and had you the best data to work with. I'm going to run a sim here in a second, but anything else you wanted to bring up at quarterback that we haven't discussed?
I wanted to take some shots on Tyrod Taylor. Earlier in the week, there was like a pretty big projection for Garrett Wilson, which got corrected, so it's not there anymore. But Tyrod kind of, fits the criteria of a guy who should be a little more of a, game-ready QB than if you want to point to the negative stuff in Fields. Like last week, Eric and I had a bet on Bo Nix versus Justin Fields. Went about as terribly as it could go for the Fields side of the equation. Fields gets concussed in that game as well. But I still believe
over before that. It was over before that, for what it's worth.
It was really the concussion that hurt.
Oh, okay.
Garrett Wilson outscored Cortland Sutton, so Cortland Sutton was.
Do you want a cookie? You want a cookie? I have something that has been ordered on Amazon. It's not here yet.
Okay, so that's fine. Either way, there'll be a puppet payoff at some point for that bet. The point being for me is like I believe in the concept of the Jets offense. So getting a vet coming in who's at a price point, it's a little bit different than where we're kind of getting forced to with the 4K guys. I think appeals to me. So playing him, Rattler, same thing as well. You have both Olave and Juwan Johnson getting over 10 targets a game. The tough part is that both those teams, like I get why they don't come up. The Vegas Souls for both are under 20 points and closer to 18 than 19. That's not where you want to be. But for me, those were two QBs that we didn't say that I thought were some exposure. Those two and Baker Mayfield were the ones that we didn't hit on at all that I did go out of my way to build some lineups with.
All righty. I am building just a standard lineup here, just standard sim settings. So what do I mean by that? If you're utilizing the Sims, which you can definitely take advantage of today, we have some amazing offers, whether you guys want to take advantage of signing up at Better, Sleeper, Underdog Fantasy, Pick Six, lots of pick'em sites that you can take advantage of this. But then also Caesars, BetMGM, FanDuel, DraftKings. If you sign up with any of these sites here at Stokastic, you can get a month of The Sims, and then you could add another month of The Sims by signing up with another site. You simply go to the video description box below, follow all the links, take advantage of it because, well, it doesn't get a lot better or easier than that. Saves you a boatload of money, gets you great offers at some of these sites in addition to all that other goodness. If you have a gambling problem, please call 1-800-GAMBLER. But check out everything that we have to offer for you here with the month of Sim sign up for every partner that you sign up with. All righty. We are running these Sims, and I have a feeling at running back. Let's just get this out of the way. How chalky is too chalky for a Kenneth Walker or Jordan Mason? They're the most popular plays on the slate for very good reason, and I don't see a reason to get away from them. And now I would put CMC right up in that category as well.
Yeah, so I just ran the sim without the ownership data in and getting some Sam Darnold stacks up top. So that's
I guess
one more QB to throw into the mix
Good
that was not there
Lord.
before. But yeah, Kenneth Walker, Jordan Mason coming up so much. And this is really the big thing with the sim and, the revelations the sims provide is that, you can play the chalk. You'll look through the lineups. You won't see necessarily, a ton of Dallas, Chicago stacks around it. You won't see, the chalky assumption things around the RBs. But the fact the sims think that Walker and Mason are this good of a play where I'm getting 87% Walker right now in the top 150, Mason 71% in the top 150. You're talking about, almost 3x leverage on both guys. It's a pretty noteworthy stand here to say that those guys are the best plays. There are guys around that range that spook me, like J.K. Dobbins has apparently got some real animosity towards the Chargers, not giving him a new contract. He's talked about wanting to hang 100 rushing yards on them. He's literally the same price as Kenneth Walker. You could go down to Krosky Merritt, do that. There's guys in the 5K range you could play who are not, Walker and Mason. But the fact they both are missing that number 2 back, Walker's been splitting time with Charbonnet. Don't think George Holani comes in and takes that full role. Mason's been splitting time with Aaron Jones, but was still been getting meaningful work in the pass game and really just taking whatever drives Aaron Jones wasn't out there. Now you get no Aaron Jones there to take away high value touches. Very logical case for both guys. I would favor Walker, but I think sim-wise, Eric, it feels like these guys are almost borderline lock plays.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I was getting at, is that this has been the case all week. If you've used the Sims at all this week, you've gotten to an insane amount of both. Now, if you want to, for the sake of saying game theory, get away from a Kenneth Walker or Jordan Mason in one lineup in a 20 max setting, trying to minimize them, sure, go ahead. But I very rarely see just individual simulated player ROIs that are going to sit like this, that are going to be sitting north of the 0% number, because truly you'll have negative player ROIs. And then it's truly the lineup construction that's going to be what sends your ROI to the top. But these as standalone plays, as individual plays, are so ridiculous with the workloads they're walking into. I mean, Seattle has a bunch of creative players. I was trying to figure out, is there anybody that's going to potentially get any type of goal line work? Because we saw Zach Charbonnet get more goal line work than anybody expected the first 2 weeks. There was news that they basically were just alternating series, which is kind of a weird thing to me. I'm I kind of would want people in and out, but whatever. If you want them to get in a rhythm or whatever, have fun, have that. But Kenneth Walker and Jordan Mason, sub 6K, it's just too good to pass up for me. I'm going to be playing a metric ton of both. And JT and Christian McCaffrey on the expensive end have certainly come along for the ride now. Bijan Robinson, quite a bit of exposure sitting there as well. Is Saquon Barkley being forgotten about on this slate, Spags? Because I feel like he's my favorite tournament running back option and has been the entire week.
He's interesting to me because I think Bijan's a great play. The fact too that you've had him have 100 receiving yards in the first game where he couldn't get going in the run game, and the run game could get going in week 2. He puts up 150 rushing yards and still adds some receiving on top. He's got great touchdown equity. I really like Bijan Robinson. I also personally believe that Bryce Young could keep that game competitive, at least if he shows more like he did after the first 2 drives last week. I think there's hope there for that game to hang in. McCaffrey, the workload as well was really good week 1 with them having to kind of deviate mid-game. Last week with a full game plan, workload was not as good. It could be the matchup and all that. I think Saquon, there's a credible case to go there just based on the fact that he's not going to be 20% plus owned. And frankly, the 17% that Stokastic has for him in ownership projections, I think that's high. Like, I think people are fading Saquon right now because they're not buying into the Eagles offense. But the reality is Saquon's avoiding more tackles so far this year. He's getting less yards before contact, so the offensive line is not make it as easy for him as he had it last year. But I think he's just as good. Now, the matchup's not super appealing against the Rams, I guess, on paper, but the upside for Saquon versus Bijan Robinson versus Christian McCaffrey, I agree with you. Like, Saquon's upside is just as high as those guys, and I don't think he should be owned at 10% when the other guys are 25%, 40%.
I mean, he just completely pulverized the Rams, like completely last year. And this is the best offensive line in football. I guess the one concern is maybe if A.J. Brown is not A.J. Brown anymore, his separation scores, I cited them from week 1. Still not great, Bob. Not great in week 2. Lowest passing rate. I mean, Devonta Smith had, a couple of near ridiculous plays. I mean, he's the one who's getting aired out too when Jalen Hurts is just throwing it up there. Usually that's the A.J. Brown spot where it's like, that's where you're going to capture some upside, some one-on-one matchups that just, a deep bomb here, deep bomb there. And you just kind of like find it through touchdown equity rather than volume. But I look at Saquon Barkley on this slate and it's like, you can't play enough running backs. That's for sure. 2 guys are pulling a majority of the running back ownership as they should be. So now with CMC sitting at 24, I guess he's kind of been sitting around the same. We didn't really change his projection at all. Saquon Barkley relative to Bijan and JT, maybe he does get to 17%, but it just doesn't seem likely. So I'm glad that you kind of feel the same way that I do. Josh Jacobs is going to run the football a lot. I saw somebody in chat earlier say Jordan Love is going to throw the ball a lot. No, he's really not. You can look at this stuff this day and age. He has a 28.5 passing attempt prop. If you think that they need to throw the ball a lot, withdraw your DFS lineups. Just bet the over of 28.5 passing attempts and call it a day, because that's an absolute slam dunk. I'm more in line with thinking Josh Jacobs gets a lot of volume against Cleveland. Is it that appealing to get on the road in Cleveland a ton of volume? I'm not sure, but sometimes that can be the more viable pivots here in DFS, is somebody you know is going to be getting all the opportunity. And Bucky Irving, as far as an expensive pivot, Rachaad White played that end of series. I mean, he obviously had the game-winning touchdown as well. He's starting to be a little bit more obnoxious than I expected him to be. Maybe that's just the changeover at OC. Obviously, with a lot of changeover there as he left for Jacksonville. But I look at these expensive running backs and it's like, all right, if people don't want to be trying to take shots on some of them, if we're trying to trim ownership on those expensive guys, do you have anybody else that you're kind of like looking at getting to? Because I don't think going cheap is going to be the way I want to go about paying running back if I'm going to pivot.
Yeah, I mean, I still am okay taking some shots of guys in the 5K range, just knowing that you're going to be able to get direct leverage on a Walker or a Mason. But I think in terms of that 7K range, I'm with you on Josh Jacobs being a little bit underowned. Like, I get Jonathan Taylor had the big game last week. The red zone role for him has been very good as well, with Taylor averaging 6 red zone opportunities per game, 2 inside the 10-yard line. That's all good stuff for him. That's like super high-level bell cow usage. So, like, I'm on board with Jonathan Taylor. Just does seem like you're not being sneaky there with him projected for 23% ownership. And he's also a guy too, I think, pulls ownership away from that theoretical amount going to Saquon. But Bucky, I agree, is like going to be a little bit underowned. People seeing Rachaad White back in the mix last week probably spooks them a little bit. And frankly, it does spook me too. But Bucky still has had good goal line work, still regular work. Also finally started to show a little bit of juice at the end of that last game for the Bucs. So I think Bucky's interesting. But Jacobs, to me, what stands out is that the Green Bay defense, I think, should be really in play. It's tough to pay up for the most expensive defense on many slates, but you have a low game total for Cleveland. Flacco's dropping back as much as anybody in football. And we just saw, in my opinion, a much better QB in Jaden Daniels look completely lost against Green Bay. We've seen 2 weeks of Green Bay getting good defensive results, and it's only 2 weeks, but a ton of pressure being created, a 26% pressure rate by Green Bay. Flacco has been really flailing and floundering under pressure with a negative 0.95 EPA on those plays, basically giving away a point of value every time he sees pressure. That's not good. So I think pairing Jacobs and Green Bay's defense, that's one way to get unique on the slate. And unlike a Trey McBride, all Josh Jacobs does is score touchdowns. So you're probably going to get one in this game, if nothing else.
Back to 2018 DFS, my friend. We're going running back defense correlation for all the Bucs. We're gonna make it happen. I don't know. I kind of have some appeal. I'm seeing some conversation in chat about the $2,200 defenses. I kind of have appeal for both of them. If we're being completely honest, the Raiders 2,300 are going to pull, I think, some decent ownership down there. But Jets against Tampa. Tampa likes to throw the ball around. Igbuka a little bit limited. Didn't look perfect against Atlanta last week by any means. And Again, it's a defense 2,200. And then the Browns going up against Green Bay, first game for them on the road, period, this season. There are some defensive pieces there in Cleveland. So I think Josh Jacobs probably my favorite Green Bay Packer, period, on this slate. But I don't know if it's saying much. I have 8% of him in my personal allocation that I'm fiddling with here on the side. But hey, it's not nothing. I think that there's some calculated shots to be taking. And I do think Green Bay defense, I'm going to try to find some kind of a correlation aspect, favorite some of those lineups in the Sims, and we'll be able to party. And if you're looking at how to do that as well, obviously I ran everything here standard that is on your screen. You can quick favorite here. We have the lineup filters as well, where you can basically just say, hey, I want to take a look at anything that has to do with the stack. I can look at the specific quarterback that, I'm potentially looking at, or I could say RB. I could add another filter with the defense, and I am set to go. So you could literally set that up to be Jacobs, Green Bay, and you're set. So check out all of that. So many opportunities for you with the Sims tool to still have some optionality to what you're building and what you're throwing in front of the screen. But for the most part, we're not going to be smarter than the computer. I'm going to let the computer do a lot of its stuff here. So I'm going to quick favorite these 150 again, and we'll round out the running back conversation. Late swap. I think that's kind of the main appeal I think that exists with some of these running backs that are cheaper if I'm trying to make anything work. If Jordan Mason goes ballistic, I'm probably going to be in a good spot considering 78% of my lineups, 79% of my lineups are probably going to have him there. But let's say that he doesn't perform very well. And I'm trying to find some way of potentially getting away from the Kenneth Walker chalk that is going to look much, much better. And I hope that he fails or something of that nature. Tony Pollard is down here. He's been popping in the Sims all week. And now the exposure has come way down on him as I've started to add more to the Jonathan Taylor, Bijan Robinson, and Christian McCaffrey bucket. As I said, I think that's the typical build, but is there any case that you can really make for other running backs that are cheap here? I know Jalen Warren's somebody that Aaron Rodgers talked up throughout the week. I don't know how much it matters, but Spags, we're looking for some pivots potentially. Do you have any for us?
I mean, I mentioned Dobbins. He doesn't come up at all in the sim, which is not a great sign. Doesn't make me feel super bullish about it, but I do think he's at the same price point. And again, as talked this week, like there aren't a lot of running backs this week that specifically talked about putting up 100 yards on a touchdown. And I do think have the enmity in their body to pull that off. And I would say Dobbins is one of those guys. So to me, he stands out. But I would agree with you, Pollard and Warren based on the Sims, the most live plays here. Pollard coming in 9% for me in the top 150, Warren at 10%. And Warren's the one who I think has a shot of really consolidating a role here. This week, Caleb Johnson inactive. Not that he's been a big part of that offense or anything, but it does sort of signify a recircling around Jalen Warren that I don't think people expected in the offseason. Then he got the new money. It's towards the end of the offseason. It was announced a starter. Like he's gotten stuff that have been working in his favor. The big thing that stands out now is he's getting 4 red zone opportunities a game, 2.5 inside the 10-yard line for him. He's basically starting to roll together his old workload with what Najee Harris had. I think that's pretty appealing. The overall touch workload is not great, 15.5 per game, but still avoiding a lot of tackles, which he always has, about a 25% missed tackle rate for him. That means he's doing his part. I think that for Jalen Warren, the big concern I have is that New England's defense is really only good in the run defense. That's been a Mike Vrabel staple everywhere he's been. Secondary usually sucks, especially downfield. Run defense tends to be strong. That's been the case this year so far. But Warren, I think, I would like him more than Pollard. Pollard, I see how he can get there if things work a certain way for Tennessee in that game. But yeah, for Jalen Warren right now, as my child comes in, I think Jalen Warren's a strong player right now.
Oh, hello.
Hi, come here. I know you're.
Oh, gotta say hi to everybody.
Here, here's Luca, guys.
Oh,
what's going on? But are you
doing?
He's scared of the school bus in Cars 3 right now. There's a demolition derby in Cars 3, and he doesn't like the school bus. We're doing great.
I don't even like Cars 3, so that's okay.
It's not great. It's all about Lightning McQueen learning about his own mortality, which is not the most fun thing in the world.
I was going to say, that's kind of my main takeaway too. It was just like, man, I was looking for something light and upbeat watching Cars 3 one day. And that was not the case. It was not the case.
Well, let me, if you'll indulge me here, let me go get him set up with Cars 2 instead. And I'll be right back.
You do that here. As we've kind of finished out the running back position here, friends, we've got other spots to potentially look at, but as I said before, Jordan Mason's really as cheap as I'm going to go on this slate. There's nothing sub 5,300 that I really want to be firing up. One thing that I have been thinking about the entire week that I was going to ask Spags about, the Washington backfield. this is obviously a spot where a lot of people are looking at Washington defense against the Raiders and the inverse. But like the one thing I just am wondering is how much Jeremy McNichols 4,100 is going to play. He's been somebody in the passing game in Tennessee. He's been somebody that on different slates, I think I would take some shots on, but 13, 14 is not enough. And I really think that's about where Jeremy McNichols' ceiling is. He's not going to get goal line work over cross-game merit. That's just not going to be the case. But with Austin Eckler now departed here, he didn't die, but now being on, injured reserve, potentially out for, the rest of his career here with the Achilles injury, just a huge bummer. One of the really great dudes, not just for our fantasy community, but in the game of football. I think that there's something with the Washington backfield, but this is not going to be the slate where I'm probably wanting to take that shot. Chuba Hubbard, probably my last real guy that I'm taking along for a ride. Javonte Williams, I think makes some sense in some onslaught type stuff, but I'm not going to really play him individually. I don't think Dallas really wants to be establishing the run and have that be the cornerstone of what they do. That's why everybody's playing the Dallas-Chicago stuff that we'll get to at wide receiver. But that kind of does it for me on that end. Anything else you wanted to bring up at running backs, Bags?
No, I mean, look, ultimately, I think what it comes down to is like, do you want to go with the chalk? Do you want to ride with Mason? And with Kenneth Walker. And if you do, I think that's totally reasonable. But use the, include Kenneth Walker, not Mason stuff in the sim. Like try to play with some different stuff because it's really going to be the first binary bet that people make on the week.
All righty. A lot of people wanting some FanDuel stuff. A lot of this is going to be 1-for-1, not perfectly. Obviously, play multiple sites. You're going to get some different exposure. But this is one of those slates at the running back position, Spags, where there's not a lot that I'm going to add between the two sites. I mean, Kenneth Walker, Jordan Mason, Christian McCaffrey. Those are my three. I don't know how they wouldn't be your three today. Like you can make calculated things based on how you want to build out your lineups, but like the three best plays are the three best plays, no matter what site you're on, period. End of story.
Yeah, I think that's a fair way to look at it.
Cool. All right. To the wide receiver position we go. 33 minutes left in our show. I'd love to get this over 1,000 so we can say hi to Puppet Lindquist. Otherwise, we're not going to get to say hi to Puppet Lindquist today. And if you don't know who Puppet Lindquist is, well, he's better than Eric Lindquist. I can tell you that much. He's more popular, that's for sure. He probably is a little bit more handsy than he should be. And I'm very respectful and a nice person in my seat. But here we are going to wide receiver. And we're going to start on the expensive end. Jamar Chase. Oh, it's so sad for Jamar Chase. Number one draft pick in fantasy, and now is going to be without Joe Burrow for potentially the rest of the season. We'll see how their season kind of plays out with Jake Browning there. But CeeDee Lamb is the guy up at the top that I like the most. Puka Nacua sitting there with 31% ownership is a huge number. Yeah, Philly underneath. There's some reasons that you could potentially. There's some potential reasons that we could get away from some of this Puka, but Sims absolutely love him. Our projection is very, very high on him. And then I brought up all the cases that I love Justin Jefferson. Let's keep it at these four. We've got no ownership to Chase. We've got quite a bit of ownership to Lamb and Jefferson, and we got a ton of ownership to Puka. Is that kind of how your lineups look as well?
Yeah, I mean, I have a little bit more Lamb because I did want to play into that game and try to be creative about find ways to play Lamb because I think that game has the best shot, as everybody does, of shooting out with Chicago and Dallas in this week. But Chase, I think Loughy and Ben made a good point on the deeper dive right before this, talking about the concept of people just not playing Jamar Chase enough. And there's been stuff too online that Jake Browning particularly struggles moving down his progressions. Like he doesn't get to the second read very often. We did kind of see that last week with Jamar Chase getting fed the 15 targets or whatever that was in that game. So I could buy into that narrative. I just didn't get super creative about that. I tried to get more creative around the chalk and the consolidation there. But I think playing Jamar Chase along with Jake Browning is like one angle that content-wise, I didn't hear people talk about around the industry that much until Loughy and Ben today kind of harped on it a little bit more. But Browning has been a functional Joe Burrow proxy, and I think it's possible that that can hit. It's just the projections. Like there's a reason the sim moves you more towards Lamb and Puka. I just didn't have the courage to try to play the Chase side more.
If I only had courage. You know
what was
that?
that?
You don't. Somebody doesn't know the Wizard of Oz. That's hurtful.
I not that. Look, I'm with you on your references. Usually, I'm no Matt Kajeski. Not as good at the analysis and data.
Are you sure?
Not as good, but better at knowing references that you put out there. That was not. I didn't know that.
It was hurtful. The first one I've thrown out a couple, but they've mostly been music. I think that was the first movie one. What are we doing here? What are we doing, Spags? This is why you were the chosen one. That's Star Wars.
Sorry.
But,
Sorry to let you down.
I loved you, Annie. Whatever. Okay, Snowflake. What was that in reference to? I don't know. People are nice. It's fine. Let's continue on our merry way. Many more wide receivers to talk about, including the guy I've been waiting to speak about here the entire time. If you didn't know, now you know. Ricky Pearsall, we brought his ownership up, but it's not as high as it should be. And that's kind of the way that I feel about that. Highest owned wide receiver on the board for us. We know what we're playing at running back for the most part. We know what the field's playing at running back for the most part. I'm going to mix in some Saquon. I'm going to take a couple calculated stands, but running back is so strong today. And now we have a 5,500 wide receiver with late news. I was waiting to unlock him. I was going to go on this rant about how great of a pivot Ricky Pearsall is, and the field's not going to pivot to him as much as they should. But now the field got bailed out, and that's a bummer for everybody involved. Jackson Smith and Jigba, though, on the Seattle side is sick. He's got a rumbly in his tumbly, and nobody wants to play Cooper Kupp. Nobody wants to play Cooper Kupp. Chris Spags, why do people now want to play Cooper Kupp, who actually had a pulse last week?
I think Cooper Kupp is not dead to rights either. I did see him in some of the highest ROI lineups when I was combing through stuff before the show as well. Usually paired with JSN, but in a few lineups where JSN was faded and then we got Cooper Kupp in, might have been ones too where there was no Walker. So just kind of trying to push the production through him. I'm with you. I think JSN's underlying numbers have been a little bit hard to keep up. I mean, he's at a 45% target per out run rate so far through 2 weeks. Was at 60% through week 1. So we kind of saw that come back down to reality as Kupp gets anything resembling his normal workload. But JSN has been a popular sim play. Stokastic's been kind of bringing him in heavily on the sims and the projections for the last few weeks. And yeah, he definitely is giving you usable enough games. But I feel like, to me, even relative to the RB chalk, where I try to get creative, try to do some pivots and all that, I think I'm just more comfortable not playing JSN than a Jordan Mason, than a Trey McBride, obviously Kenneth Walker as well in that RB area. Even the Chicago Dallas stuff that seems pretty chalky. Like, I like JSN. It's just like the touchdown equity is not great. And if you're going to play him on DraftKings as opposed to FanDuel, I think, where you get at least the PPR scam. I think that's all he is. I think he's just kind of an elevated PPR scheme. He's not even that efficient right now.
Is Kupp a better play than Keenan Allen? No. It depends what you mean by play as well. Like, Keenan Allen's going to be popular. And that's the push and pull of everything that we're doing on this conversation is projection, ownership. Trying to make the best possible lineups we can, not necessarily sitting here and worrying too much about, because I don't give a shit that Kenneth Walker and Jordan Mason are popular, but wide receiver, there's stuff that can go wrong for sure. And things that, they can just separate themselves in such a way where it becomes difficult to say somebody's this and this play. Like, we go down here to 4,700, which we got to scroll down a little bit to Keenan Allen, got 20 and change % of him. I'm fine playing Keenan and Ricky Pearsall in a number of lineups together. I don't have to pivot off of him. I can put together still high ROI lineups. They seem to be pretty darn good to put together. But again, the beauty of what we're doing these shows for is simply don't evaluate it as a 1-for-1 play or I need to pivot off this popular play. That's not the conventional wisdom that we're utilizing the Sims for anymore. We don't have to have conventional wisdom. We can let the Sims kind of do its thing. And it just stands out that when you have a guy who is projecting this well in this range, we should be playing a lot more of him. And standalone, stacks, whatever it may be, Ricky Pearsall I absolutely love. But other wide receivers to look at in this 6-5K range, I really like Ladd McConkey. Sims don't seem to like him very much. Simply just looking at the box scores and knowing that Keenan Allen, Quinn Johnston have gone ballistic with Justin Herbert playing at MVP type levels. And Ladd McConkey hasn't really come along for the ride. Patrick Surtain is probably going to be out on QJ quite a bit. I would assume that that's going to be kind of what they end up doing. But again, Keenan Allen in the slot, it feels pretty immune. He'll find volume even in the toughest of matchups. And Ladd McConkey, he's just good. And nobody's really playing him whatsoever. I guess right around 10%. But I like the idea of him. JSN, as long as he's somewhat healthy, there's not really any concern with this or the ownership. I'm happy to be going that direction. But this is the range that's the most difficult for me to parse through, and I want your help because something has to break here. You brought up Debo in stacks alongside Marcus Mariota. We have T. Higgins, who, wild to see 3% on T. Higgins, even at 6,100, because even with Jake Browning, he had massive ceiling games over the course of the last few years in relief duty. Devontae Adams up against Philly with all of the Puka Nacua ownership, and A.J. Brown, who, again, might just be dust, but also was a first, second round draft pick in everybody's fantasy drafts, and all of a sudden has fallen way by the wayside and is 6,300. Spags, what are we taking tournament shots here in this range?
I mean, I like this 6,200 to, I would say, 5,700 range, where I just think that range gets underplayed a little bit today. I mean, you have nobody here. I guess Devontae Adams at 62 flat. The only one that gets above 10% ownership. Everybody else under that, again, Metcalf a little bit above 10% as well. Jacoby Myers over 12. So don't hold me to the exact thing here. But the point is that it kind of flattens down a lot with people perhaps playing Dallas Chicago guys, playing some more expensive guys. But I think with Debo, Drake London, I know there's a guy in the chat who seems to really not get that Drake London can play well when they also are favored. Like Drake London can be the thing that leads to touchdowns occurring, and in fact provides you pretty good leverage against Bijan Robinson. But Drake London's in that mix, Debo's in that mix, Garrett Wilson, I think, is still in that mix with Tyrod Taylor stepping in. Your boy Cortland Sutton, I think, still looks pretty good. People not playing the Denver side as much, even though the Chargers side comes out pretty well data-wise. Pickens has had 2 red zone targets a game, more than CeeDee Lamb by a pretty decent clip. And he is a guy that people are sleeping on a little bit, I think, in terms of target share. So yeah, like Ted McMillan too is another one there where I think he showed last week 100-yard game and definitely a good game script for Bryce Young with them turning it over twice on like the first 2 drives. But then they cleaned it up and Ted McMillan was a beneficiary of that. I think he's a guy that looks good as well. So frankly, to me, if you play 2 guys from this range, I think it's a good move, especially if you're not playing the chalkier stuff out there.
Trying to pull up another browser because every time now that I rerun The Sims in another screen, it continues to wipe it from your page here. Yeah. So let that be known, something I'll make sure that I do going forward. But as I kind of work through it, I'm with you, Ted McMillan. I think Xavier Legette sucks. I said that, I think, the first 2 weeks. Like, he just runs. So maybe it's bad, but also Ted McMillan doesn't have to deal with like a Xavier Legette, and they're playing somebody like off the street coming in there. Hunter Renfrow in 2 wide receiver sets has been out there a little bit too. And with Jalen Coker on IR, it's just creative players littered throughout there for Carolina. Ted McMillan, you got to just rely on him if you're Bryce Young here in a spot like this. Terrell's out today too, right? AJ Terrell, is he not?
I believe so, but I don't defensive stuff. I just let the Vegas Soul take care of that.
Oh, look at you, just being smart and educational.
I learned so much in my brain. We got to know all the position guys. Like I can know every 3rd string tight end, or I can know starting corners. But I believe Terrell got ruled out for today. But if I'm wrong, please don't yell at me.
Okay. Well, I'm definitely factoring in when I think about CeeDee Lamb. I'm doing to his exposure here at the moment, because it is absolutely asinine how much I think I'm going to end up playing of him when it's all said and done. But as we finish out the wide receiver here, Ted McMillan, yeah, I feel pretty darn good about it. We've covered a lot of this 5K range here, as you said, 5,700 and up. Metcalf, McLaurin, if you're trying to bring something along for the ride, even though I think Debo is still the guy that I prefer a little bit higher up here as well. If you're trying to make that stack work, I don't think it's even required. Brought up Zach Ertz and tight end, going to be doing some interesting stuff there as well. But we get into this Rome Odunze and DJ Moore situation. And the Sims are kind of in line with just, eating the chalk here, being around the field on Rome Odunze. When is DJ Moore going to pop here? Because Chicago, massive ownership across the board here with Caleb Williams and these stacks. But DJ Moore, the guy who's been the number 1 there with Justin Fields and now with Caleb Williams, the lone wide receiver they've had there the last couple of years, he's pulling like no ownership. And I'm kind of intrigued by it in my Caleb Williams stacks. Are you going to be playing any of him and anybody else in this range that you want to be firing up? Because Sims used to be getting us to Chris Olave. Thankfully, they are not anymore. He has been painful.
Yeah, I think more the big issue is that the role just has not been as good as Rome Odunze, through 2 weeks. How much does that matter? But I think you have the credible case too. Like there were reports in the offseason that DJ Moore, might be falling out of favor with the team. There was, some talks about his off-field demeanor / on-field demeanor last year with him walking off. And they talked to the media about that. Like Ben Johnson was like, yeah, we had to talk about it. It should be fine now. But you're already kind of seeing Moore do similar stuff. The target share is now down to 5.5 per game as opposed to 10 for Rome Odunze. Air yards benefiting Odunze as well. Red zone targets greatly benefiting Odunze. He's had 1.5 on the year. DJ Moore's had none. Rome's had 3 deep shots a game. There was 20+ air yards. DJ Moore's had 1. But I do think because of how bad Moore has been, I think it's a time to buy into him. If he fails this week in a really pristine matchup, especially in a double stack with Odunze, I think at a certain point, we run the risk of Moore maybe getting traded. You could see Luther Burden step up into that role because that was sort of where it seemed like it could go in the offseason. But that offers opportunity here. The fact Moore hasn't been good, the fact that, people are down on him in terms of just a, public conversation level. Chicago fans not stoked about DJ Moore. And you have the big box score game from Adunze last week. It means that people are probably a little bit low on Moore for this week, especially without like an obvious wide receiver 3. The tight ends are just out there kind of running wind sprints at this point. So I'm with DJ Moore being a play that's worth more than the field has. In terms of Stokastic data, though, I only got him at 5% fields at 8. So I did hand build DJ Moore in some stuff before the show, but sim-wise, seems like they are not in favor of the DJ Moore side.
All right. I got all of my stuff in. So now I can kind of command this ship. I'm ready to rock.
Command us.
Well, let's get down to some absolute madness at the bottom of the board here for me. And I'm glad that the Sims are kind of on board with this with me, because my top 20 lineups, as I'm putting in all the 20 max, my Millie Maker lineups that I'm throwing together for both sites, I feel as though this is kind of where I want to just do is I want to flip the salary upside down. Sky Moore and David Moore. Both of these idiots, I think, are somewhat interesting today. Now, hear me out. Kendrick Moore at 3,500. I do expect he's somebody that once I kind of adjust one more thing that I want to in the late swap process after this show, I'll probably get to a little bit more of. But we have access to some 3K guys that I think are helping me out to get to more of the CeeDee Lamb, Justin Jefferson, the mega ceilings that I really want to a wide receiver, in addition to playing the chalk at running back that includes a Christian McCaffrey, who's pretty darn expensive as well. Something has to pop. And I don't think it'll be MVS. I was kind of doing that more in jest over on X because, well, I guess I'm the MVS guy, but I think Sky Moore probably ends up being the guy who walks into a little bit more of a wide receiver 3 type role. That's got some utility against Arizona. It's got utility in a Shanahan offense. And then we've got another guy in David Moore who isn't even showing up on your screen right now, but I think David Moore of Carolina is probably the guy who sees some type of a jump here with the absence of Xavier Legette. I don't think you can really play Hunter Renfrow more at this stage of his career. And so we have to kind of like find what is the next man up. I think David Moore ends up being your guy, Spags. He's a flat 3K. Those are 2 cheapies that I want to be mixing into lineups, in addition to Troy Franklin, who I think is probably going to pull some type of ownership, especially Chargers run backs. I think he just makes it so easy. A little bit more palatable. I said last week, oh, Sutton's going to smash. Sutton did absolutely nothing. Otherwise, some of my Bo Nix lineups would have smashed still, even though Russ cooked. But how are we feeling here about some of the cheapies at wide receiver? Are you with me in playing these unbelievably ridiculous 3K plays?
Yeah, in the latest sim run, I did get to 3% Sky Moore, 1.5% of Kendrick Bourne. Like you mentioned, I don't think MVS is coming in at all, which just feels like an affront to you at this point. I feel like that's
it does. No respect. To be fair, deserve respect. But anyway, continue on.
But yeah, like these guys, like I get getting them a little bit. Even Sterling Shepard with the possibility of limited snap count for Egbuka. Sterling Shepard's coming in a little bit over 1% for me. Ayumanor, another value play. None of these are really big stands, but I think if you're putting in a 150 set, you owe it to yourself to cycle some in. I'm personally biased towards Troy Franklin. Was a little bit more expensive. Loved him coming in last year. He never really got there. They just didn't build up the trust. And just Von Valley was running ahead of him. There was a lot of stuff that didn't work out well for him. But this year, he's rounding into that guy taking actively snaps away from Marvin Mims, which sucks for Mims. But I think Troy Franklin's a guy that at Oregon was such an elite targeter and was so efficient with everything he did. I think he's part of the reason too, where if Sutton does have down games, it's likely because Troy Franklin had a really good game like last week. So I get the Sky Moore thing. I get why he comes in. I like with how much ownership's going to go Pearsall's way. You could play it. I just really think to me, it's like play Pearsall, play McCaffrey, or play some of these other value guys like a Troy Franklin, like an Ayumanor. Ayumanor's had like Calvin Ridley's role basically, which is kind of crazy to see this early.
Yeah, is he good? He's like a 4th round rookie out of Stanford or something. Something like that.
I don't think he was great, but coming out, like to me, he looked a lot like Michael Wilson, another Stanford receiver, but he was a freak.
I watched a lot of him play at Stanford. I mean, it was like late night du jour on the West Coast, but like, I mean, I just didn't see this at Stanford. That's for sure. I mean, there was nobody throwing the ball semi-functional. Not that Cam Ward's been good so far, but it's wild. It's wild.
Yeah, I've been surprised. I agree with you on it, but yeah, he's definitely been a buzzy take. People like him. So yeah, Ayumanor I think has hope. I just think today might be more of a Ridley day, and that could mean it shifts a little more his way, but definitely usage-wise, they've been pretty much dead even so far.
Ben Chapiteau Katz, maybe adjacent to Brandon Katz, or maybe married to Brandon Katz. So love is love, everybody. Why are we playing 4K wide receivers when there are 4K QBs? I mean, that's kind of the point the Sims are making here. I'm talking about some tournament options to get off the board, looking in the largest of large field lineups for a little bit of an edge, or maybe somebody off the wall that could walk into a larger role than expected or projected. Ricky Pearsall is a building block. Jackson Smith and Jigba is a building block. Jacoby Myers is a building block. I mean, we were playing a lot of these 5-6K guys. We're just going to be over and over and over and over again like it's Marshawn Lynch. Like, that's what we're doing. So, like, that's what the Sims have us do. But we still want to talk through some of these options and guys that we can get to. Anybody else you want to discuss a wide receiver before going to tight end, where I can't wait to tell you about my favorite tight end play?
Just to quickly say that Keenan Allen comes up a lot for Stokastic too, 17% exposure, fields at 14. Other sites out there are really well projecting Keenan Allen this week as a top value. I do think if you feel like he's a sneaky play, I think it's important to point out when things aren't actually sneaky. Keenan Allen, not sneaky this week at all, with him being under 5K and again, really aggressively projected around the industry. And I just think we didn't talk about enough.
You underestimate the sneakiness, sir.
I don't know, man. He got on some other sites out there running Sims, he was getting crammed in left and right, and I was shocked by how much Keenan Allen was out there. And I do think part of the process these days of playing DFS is knowing what each provider is doing a little bit more. And Keenan Allen's coming up a good amount for Stokastic, but was coming up shockingly for some other Sim products out there.
Yep, I'm out here just in the streets trying to, guide you as best I can here, try to get you the best DFS information that I possibly can, but also trying to get you the best betting information I can as well. Check out Tails, everybody. Check out the app. The link is in the description box below. Download the App Store or at Google Play. All the goodness there. You can see my VIP and follow. You can simply go over there and follow me. And I'm throwing free stuff out there all the time, trying to give you the opportunity to jump into the streets at a very discounted price here at times as well. We got Ben Jazzraz from the last show. We got Loughy, and we've got Greg posting tons of great free information, as well as all of our other experts over at Tails on a day in, day out basis. Go to tails.bet, but mostly download this app because the app looks slick. It is operating at a very high level right from the get-go here. I'm so excited about it. You'll be excited about it too. Plus, free bets. Who doesn't like that? So check it out. Get free picks for every single game over at Tails today. All right, to tight end we go. My exposures are going to look a little bit different, but most people's exposures are definitely going to be getting to Trey McBride at the top end. We do have Brock Bowers up here. Interesting against Washington for sure. An interesting piece in Marcus Mariota lineups, I suppose. Tyler Warren, I've just been beating the drum for. I could not love a football player more than I love Tyler Warren. This is the guy who should have been in Indy the whole time. We wouldn't have to deal with Kyler Granson or Mo Alley Cox or any of this ridiculousness, Spags, because the dude's just a functional tight end in every single sense of the word. Zach Ertz, who I beat the drum for my favorite Marcus Mariota run back. David Njoku, and, getting to the long-forgotten Harold Fandon Jr. now. That was a really good take by us week 2, trying to get to some of the complementary stack pieces along for the ride. Not that Fandon burned you, but he did not win you a tournament. You really wanted the Jake Ferguson piece. Fergie Ferg, let me love you long time. Who are your favorite tight ends to get to for tournaments today, my friend?
I mean, Trey McBride, I feel like is the one, and this is a really, really hot take, Eric. The Trey McBride this week.
Really?
I did hear Loughy and Ben talk in the deeper dive as well, a point that I've seen before, and Evan Silva and Adam Levitan brought up earlier in the week as well. Trey McBride just never scores touchdowns. Going back to high school, doesn't score touchdowns. My pal Pete Overzet's brought that up before on streams I've done with him. It's a weird thing with McBride. That said, the target share is so good. The role is so good. Last week we saw Marvin Harrison crater down in terms of target earning. He'll still be fine over the course of a year, but Trey McBride is kind of your functional wide receiver 1 in what should be a competitive game. And you have enough money to afford Trey McBride. So I think he's your first choice at tight end, and then you can kind of pivot off of that. But I got 31% Trey McBride, Fields at 19. I think I'm pretty comfortable with the amount of Trey McBride I have. Besides him, I like some of the guys you mentioned. Tyler Warren, I feel like Bears fans are the ones that should be most mad about not having him right now because he looks like an elite blocker, can play right away. Their tight end is being buried by Cole Kmet, which is not really where you want to be. But Warren, I think, is a nice play as well at that $4,400 salary. I got 10% of him. Besides that, still like the Juwan Johnson types. Target share has been good for him, getting double-digit targets a game. He also got paid pretty big money in the offseason, and those two things tend to go hand in hand pretty often. Juwan Johnson, another one I believe in. Ferguson in my Dallas Chicago builds. He's just shy of 10 targets a game so far. I think at a certain point he loses some to Pickens, but Ferguson's getting targeted well. But tight end, I think to me, Eric, comes down to like, are you playing McBride or not? Like that's the first choice. If I could afford McBride, I would like to get him just to take the points there and probably the lack of ceiling, I think, from the rest of the position overall.
So all week long, I get told Trey McBride, 9 targets, 7 targets his first 2 weeks. Unbelievable volume. Phenomenal volume. You can't ask for more volume from the tight end position. He did not get the most targets in the same game as another tight end on the other side for Carolina. Tavion Sanders is 3,300, 9 targets, 7 receptions, Xavier Legette out, looking for something to bring along for the ride. I am jamming Jatavion Sanders in my personal lineup. Sims, not a huge fan, but also here's the thing. It's all relative to the projection you put in. And I obviously think he is going to be much, much more involved. And I cannot believe that we are going to get absolutely no ownership on a guy who his big thing coming out of the draft is that he had the worst bench press you could ever be, like less than 10 reps of 225. It's kind of ridiculous for an NFL player. For a mere mortal such as myself, I'd take 8 reps at 225 right now, just sitting there with my 205 bar for 1 max rep. But just thrown out by how much you bench, Chris? How much you bench?
I only use dumbbells because I have a gym in the house. So like I'm usually just doing 4 reps on 50s, but I presume I would be around 200 or so. I think might be able to get 1 at 225, but I don't, if you're doing 205, you're pretty big. People don't realize Eric, much bigger guy than his little head appears on screen. I feel like if you're doing 205, that might be around where I would.
It's a big head, Chris.
It's like people don't realize, like you see Eric walk around and he could be like a former D3 lineman. Like I feel like you've got that kind of size and people don't know that when they're talking smack to you in chat.
Yeah. Show up at your door. How about that? No, I'm a lover, not a fighter. I can't help it. It just is what it is. But I'll fight you. I'll do that too. Anyway, we got Jatavion Sanders. That's my one very hot take coming into this one. I just love this guy. I have since last year. If it weren't for getting his head bludgeoned, I think we would be talking about him a lot more than we are. But wait for that price to just keep rising. It's going to keep rising, especially with Jalen Coker on the IR. I think they just need
and missing Leggett too. Like I'm more of, Sanders this week, I didn't get him because the projections just didn't put me there. And I didn't really go out of my way to do it. Like you're seemingly hinting that you did. I got so much Sanders in best ball though. He's one of my highest exposed best ball guys. So I hope he hits. And I do think the underlying numbers, 2 red zone targets a game. Now he's averaging a 19% target per out run, is now just behind Tet McMillan. And if Bryce Young is going to drop back, and I don't think he will, if he's going to drop back 50 times a game, like he's averaging right now, that's where Sanders can get there. I don't think he's an elite target earner. But I think that's a fun call out because he really did spike the target share meaningfully last week in a way I think people probably slept on.
Yeah, you slept on it too. Obviously, you were just like, "Oh, look at this!" Oh, I just absolutely love it. This is why I'm here. I'm here. I'm here. I'm here. I'm here.
I know that reference.
Okay, that's good. I've thrown Mr. Deeds out there. I've thrown that out there. Mike Jones. Get Mike Jones up on the low because Mike Jones about to blow. It can't get better. Daniel Jones.
Somebody did say that you should have saved the Mike Jones for Mac Jones instead of Daniel Jones because then it would have been a little more of an. And I do agree with that. We're going to critique you today on the show, and I hate to do that. As you know, I hate to critique Eric Lindquist so much. But Mac Jones for Mike Jones, that would have been the home run.
I regret everything. Let's talk defense, where the Packers, it's very easy to play a $3,700 defense this week. And I don't see how you wouldn't like that with a Joe Flacco out there throwing it more. Maybe Judkins can add a little juice in the running game for them. He sure did last week as my favorite play of the entire week. My sole lock play that I've had the entire year. I thought it was asinine to see 11.5 rushing yards. He went way over that. And coaches are damn dirty liars. Never forget it. What? He got to 20 snaps. Oh, we're going to just play him 10 to 15. Oh, he looks good. Never mind. He's fine. Get back out there. You're fine. Anyway, we got Packers. We got Seahawks. We got Colts. A lot of these guys. But the one that's pulling the most exposure in the Sims, Steelers going up against New England. I find that to be pretty darn fascinating, but lots of ways to skin a cat, which I hate that expression, but we can play lots of defenses. Who are your favorites to round out our program? And also we'll probably be able to jump to the single lineup sim and build out a lineup there before.
I got the most Jets defense, the sim I just ran. Kind of surprised by that. Jets defense looks pretty bad this year. I thought they would maybe get a shot at coming back to life with Aaron Glenn taking over. Doesn't seem like that's the case so far. But Jets D going against Baker Mayfield, Bucks with a somewhat limited Igbuka. They haven't played too great. I could see why there, but it's not what I'm going to fight. Steelers D I got a lot though, and I'm okay with that. They've been pretty bad to start the year. That's the point where people have pointed out in my chats, like, why are we not targeting Steelers D? It's been 2 weeks. They spend so much money in that defense. This is what they're known for. I think the Steelers figure it out. And frankly, when you start pretty slowly, sometimes the way you claw back is by decimating a Drake May type who has accuracy issues, who plays really fast and loose sometimes in a way it's not the best. I like Steelers D a good amount. Packers D was my third highest exposed, got them at 10%. So it's a pretty big fall off there. But if you can afford the Packers D, I think they're worth prioritizing just given the pressure they're getting and how much Joe Flacco drops back. Colts D, I feel like is more of a cash game D to me in terms of how I view them, but they're also fine. But Steelers and Packers are the ones I really tried to get some more of because I think they make sense. And I think in particular for the Steelers, price point at 2,800 works pretty well with a lot of different lineups.
Yeah, it certainly does. Mixing and matching. I love this Jets shout out by the Sims. I mean, I've been playing a lot of these cheaper defenses, trying to just kind of mix it up. This is the other thing I've been thinking about a lot, Spags, this week. The new kickoff rules. We're going to get some fluky shit that happens more now than what it did pre this rule existing. Why not take shots on the bottom barrel one to go to the upside, the maximum upside? I think that's what the Sims are kind of telling us here with the Jets. And I brought that up at the beginning of the show where I thought that they made a ton of sense up against Tampa Bay. That's going to go out there and throw. That's going to be a priority for them. And then the Browns even 3%. I have a little bit more than that in my allocation. Green Bay, we don't know what that looks like on the road here. I assume it's really, really good. And we all assume that they're going to be extremely competitive in not just this game, but like murder in this game and potentially go on the way to the Super Bowl. Them and the Eagles in the NFC looking pretty darn good. I just love the cheap defenses on today's slate.
Yeah, Jets D, I will say for them too, one of the precursors to picking up more interceptions is usually pass deflection rate. They're deflecting about 16% of the passes going against them, and they haven't picked off a single pass. So you might see that flip for them if Baker plays a little bit loose or, whatever the case may be. Mike Evans isn't trying a route. There's a lot of ways that could happen for the Bucs, even though they are a good offense.
Anything else you want to talk about defense before we build out a lineup to round out our program?
No, I think look, defense, you guys have no deal at this point. Just play whoever comes up. But I think to me, Steelers and Packers, the two that I find the most fun. And I agree with you, Jets at 2,200. There's ways that could pay off.
Yep. I like the Packers. I like the cheapies. I mean, I'm getting to a smattering of the middle, but welcome to defense in DFS. It's still here. We still deal with it. Let's build out a lineup, and I'm going to let you pick the quarterback that we go to for the single entry lineup that we're going to build out here now on screen. Maybe people want to build along with us, throw it in the last second tournament. That sounds like good times.
Let's just go easy and leave a lot of salary. Let's go Mariota. Let's see what we can do.
All right. Going to the bottom. Here we are. And at running back, I think we've made the case of just getting to cheapies over and over and over again. But one guy you could definitely be mixing in that we haven't talked about a lot, Jonathan Taylor against Tennessee. He's got such a certain workload. It's just been ridiculous. I think getting some early information going to him and then a 5,400 Jordan Mason, kind of like doing that. And if you want to put a running back down there at the flex, I'm all right with it too. But let's have you cover some wide receivers for us.
Give me Pearsall at this point. He was a guy that I'm gonna have to swap around a little bit to get some more of for myself. Thankfully, the late swap tool will make that easy after the slate locks. But let's put Pearsall in and just take the chalk here because I think we want to build. I want to see what it looks like with Pearsall too, to be honest.
Yeah, I do too. I want to get to Pearsall with all of this stuff. I was finishing out something on FanDuel that I had a mistake on quick. All right, we got Pearsall. We're gonna throw him in. I also really like the idea of CeeDee Lamb. I just absolutely think if you're going to get to ceilings here and you're looking for something comparable, if we're not going to play McCaffrey in this lineup, which, isn't completely a problem, I don't think. But I think we got to go to something that has comparable ceiling. A CeeDee Lamb certainly can be that guy at a different position. Jacoby Myers, I think maybe if we're playing the Mariota side, we don't have to have a run back, but we can go Jacoby Myers within the same game environment. No?
Yeah, I think that's fine. And let's see your boy Zach Ertz and see what we have left.
Okay. Then we'll throw in Ertz here as I'm finishing that out. And
I also personally wouldn't have minded Odunze over Myers for anybody who's trying to build a lineup in the last 30 seconds, but I think Myers is fine too.
Oh, it's got us playing Mason. And this makes sense. Mason, getting to the Packers D. Great lineup. Look at
There you
that.
go. That was easy.
Great. We know how to do stuff, Spags. Look at us go.
We also did feed the sim what we knew it wanted, which I absolutely did deliberately because I knew we had not a lot of time left.
We would never do such a thing. I've never done that before.
The sim sometimes is like the plant, the Audrey from Little Shop of Horrors, where, by the way, I don't know that usually offhand. We just looked it up the other day because we couldn't remember it. But it's like just feed me what I want. Give me the food. Like, and if you give the sim shit you know is gonna hit, your lineup's gonna look pretty good actually. But we got unique at a few spots.
We got unique at a few spots. Unique New York. Guys, that does it for us here on the NFL Live Before Lock show at Stokastic. Check out Tails, but also check out my guy Chris Spags at Chris Spags over on X. Go check out Splash Play. That is over on the YouTubes. You type in Splash Play and his beautiful face shows up. And boy, is he good in the best ball streets. Boy, is he good when the NBA starts back up. Make sure you're following him. Tell the people anything else you want them to know about you as we finish this out.
I gotta go be a dad right now, so let me get all the lascivious things out of the way. Here's my penis. Yeah. But there's no Spags Puppet this week, so you get Puppet Linguist one more time. No, I don't know. It's gonna be a stressful day for me. So puppeteering, let's get out of the way now. I hope the Dallas-Chicago game goes off well. I hope you guys have a lovely time. Check me out at Splash Play Pod on Twitter. Follow me and Eric, and good luck, guys. And may your children be well behaved today.